to do what's best for me and my family, and that's who you have to take care of first. But of course, there's unfinished business here. Yeah, winning would be it's the most important thing. If I feel that there's a good window to win here over and over again, then signing is no problem.
Okay, so this isn't TMZ. I don't want to, Noodles, don't TMZ. Get mad at me, but the only one... No. The only one thing that... I'll tell you later. The only thing that got my attention is that he said, if we're set up to win over and over again, which made me think he doesn't think that that's the case right now, or he would have said that. You know what I mean? Like, he would have said, we're set up to win, so this shouldn't be a big deal. He was almost leaving it like, we better be set up to win come next season and years after, or maybe it's an issue. That's the only thing I took from that. I don't want to...
No, that's not TMZ. I think that's fair. But the thing is they, he said disappointment, this crew. Like, I think it's fair for him to take his time and see what the plan is moving forward. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. No, I was joking. I'm more mad about our clip yesterday. I had people reaching out to me, going, you guys are three idiots talking about a McDavid trade already. And I said, of course, we got radioed
by ourselves.
Not by ourselves, by people. I don't know who the idiots that do the headlines.
We're speaking hypothetically, but here would be my response to whoever those people are. How about you watch the thing and then you realize that it's not about what the actual clip is?
Well, how about the people who do our headlines get their head out of their ass and stop radioing us? Yeah. That's the problem.
Or actually read the articles instead of just looking at clips and thinking the world's coming to an end.
I understand.
There's far too many people in society that don't actually read anything or watch anything. They look at a clip from somebody or a headline and then say, oh, the world's coming to an end because someone tweeted something.
I know. It's a good point.
But actually watch it and read it and realize that we came upon that spontaneously and
but it's our own company that some 20-year-old who writes our headlines did that to us and made us look like idiots.
I don't think we look bad at all. I thought that
I've got another proposition.
You called yourself a loser for it, even saying, I know I'm being a loser. That's the problem.
I said that about other things. I don't remember saying it about that.
Getting back to O's thing, I think everything he said today was true. You got to take the time. If you're going to sign an 8-year deal or 4 or 5 or whatever, you got to make sure you're understanding. What if he goes in there to sign a deal and they go, yeah, we're running the exact same team back next year? And he goes, well, hold on a second.
They probably aren't going to do that, but how much can they reasonably change? Like that, let's be honest here. When you look at and this applies to every team in the league. Let me clarify that. You look at the free agents that are available. There's not a lot of groundbreaking players and transactions. Now, trades are obviously possible, but then everyone's trying to improve. No one's just going to take your 4 or 5 guys you don't want and give you stars. So,
I agree.
I don't know what Stan Bowman can even say to him or Leon. Like, let's face it, Draisaitl deserves to be in the room too to ask what's going on and how are you going to help me win. What are they going to possibly say? Like, how can you possibly make McDavid? And again, you can apply it to Toronto. Let's say Austin Matthews goes in. Hey, Brad, how are you going to help me out? What's he going to do? Who's he going to get? I mean, you got to work. You got to find pieces.
It's immense pressure on the general manager.
Absolutely.
Because even their performance or not, it's like the general manager, if it's like on the straight up, it's like, well, you got to perform too. I can't control how you play in these playoff series, and you're going to come at me and say you better put the best foot forward to put the roster together. It's like, help yourself out.
I think a lot of that is fair. Your top players do have input, and they should, because they are the guys that drive the bus, and that's not just in Edmonton or Toronto. That's everywhere. Nathan McKinnon, we saw how that worked out. Nathan McKinnon wasn't very happy that his right-hand man got dealt out of nowhere. And that didn't work out well for Colorado. Now I would never ever take a shot at Colorado for trying to change things, and that's what I've been trying to, bang on the drum yesterday. Is they've gotten to the final and they've reached a certain point. Something has to give there with their thought process. It might be simple as like, we're going to change our goaltending out, or we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Like I think Connor McDavid would want to know the plan moving forward. Mm-hmm. But, Bill Zito took a big swing, 3 years ago? Jonathan Huber, that was a President's Trophy winning team that was very, very good.
Well, I'm not going to ask you hypothetically who that would be on Edmonton, because heads are going to explode.
No, I'm not saying trade a big player. What I'm saying is it starts with the mentality. I'm not saying trade a big player. What I'm saying is having the stones to go, this is where we've made it so far, but it has to look differently. And what do you it might just be a goaltender. It might be like we're going to have to do that, right?
That's the simplest way of doing it. I mean, the goaltending, it is, if you look at the stats, which is never 100% accurate, this is why you have to marry the two, stats and eye test and context and all that kind of stuff. But if you looked at the stats of their goaltending in the playoffs the last couple of years, you would say it is an absolute miracle they were a win away a year ago and 2 wins away this year. You'd say that's impossible to have your starting goalie pulled multiple times and go. It's impossible, and yet they were, and they did. And like, we spent weeks talking about the Leafs, where it's such a small, like incremental amount of growth, but it's so tough to get it, because you're not going from Chicago to the Cup. You're not even going from like Detroit or Montreal to the Cup. You're going from being, Edmonton literally couldn't be closer. Literally could not be closer. Like, they're in 2 straight Cup finals, Game 7 and Game 6. You
1
literally
win away
couldn't
and 2
be
wins
closer.
away.
But that's
but how do you change and get the 4th win?
You're right. Like,
it's tough.
The margins are small, but that's, like I always say, like, I don't blame somebody for trying to change a different look. Like, that's and again, they've got to figure out, Edmonton collectively as a management group with Connor McDavid, anybody who has input in that organization has to figure out. Same thing here in Toronto. Like, we've said it right when the Leafs lost out. Damn good team. Can't get over the hump. Trying to get over the hump, That's why they kept running it back. It's like, they're this close, margin of error, all of that type of stuff. It's not wrong. But, Toronto went one way. It's like, we're not changing it. We're just going to, eventually the numbers are going to do it. Like, it didn't happen. With Edmonton, they have to have a thought process, too, is what are they going to do? Because there's no guarantee of health. There's no guarantee. They're an older team. They got to figure stuff out. Like, I think you've got to identify 1 or 2 things and go, yes, we like the framework. We know what we have here, but look different in this position. Look different in that. Like, that's, to me, what they're trying to do.
Goaltending is the most significant one, and to me, I don't know how they're going to do that to appease McDavid in this case, or Draisaitl.
Yeah, goaltending, and then everybody's numbers piling up. Like, somebody sent out a tweet the other day. It's like, is Edmonton now going to be the new core 4, where they've got Nurse and Bouchard and Draisaitl and McDavid, and you pile it all on top of each other, and you're like, that's a lot into 4 players. And what do we talk about with the Florida Panthers? Depth. Depth. Have a bunch of good players making $5 million, $4 million, $6 million. I don't know. I don't know what the breakdown is, but if you're gonna have that many guys, and everybody's like, oh, the salary. I don't care if the salary cap is going up. Loading up with that much money invested in those players, it really kind of takes a dent at the depth.
Well, it does. It does, but you do have to factor in the salary cap going up, because where the Leafs got jammed is the cap was flat for 3 or 4 years. So those guys ate up the most amount of percentage. The cap going up does give some flexibility for another $5, $6, $7 million player. And if 2 years from now, if the cap is at 105,
it does. But if you're spending $50 million on 4 players, which is very possible that Bouchard gets $11 million, something like that, that would make $20 million between him and Nurse. Draisaitl's going to be at 14. We know McDavid's making 15 or 16. Like, that's literally $50 million. And you're right, Noodles, that the cap goes up, but it doesn't for the other teams who are locked in, who you're competing with. And what I mean by that is, you look at Florida, Reinhart's deal's done. Forsling's got 7 years left on his deal. Jones has 5 left, and Chicago's eating money. Barkov's locked in. So Florida's going to look at it and be like, "You're right, the cap's going up." And guess what we got, man? We got 12 guys making that money. You got 4. You know, and that's the issue that all these teams are going to have. And that's why, again, you look at the market. Like today, news broke this morning, Matt Duchene has signed an extension with Dallas, 4 years at $4.5 million, which I think is a great deal. Honestly, I would say for both sides, because Duchene clearly wants to stay in Dallas.
Yeah, and they probably told him, you want to kind of hit a home run here and make 7 or 8 or 9 and do the Brad Marchand numbers thing. Then it's not going to happen here, so make a choice.
So that's a great, and I know where you're heading this.
Yes, it's forward it right to John Tavares and say, that's our offer. That's our offer. Like, take it or leave it.
Right, like that's
that simple.
Because
I don't care about state tax either. Let me clarify that right now. 4 by 4.5. If you don't like it, no problem. We'll move on. You got to start winning negotiations. You got to start, because what Duchene did there, okay, and let me rephrase that. Maybe state tax is $5 million or whatever. I'm saying from a Leaf perspective, but Duchene clearly looked at it and said, "I want to stay here. I got a young family that likes it here. All these things we've heard from John.
Yeah.
I think I can win here. It's a good team. I'm a good player." He had a great season, just as good as John Tavares. Like basically the same season. They both came into the league at the same time. He went 3rd overall. John went 1st. Very similar. And I'm sorry, if he's going to take 4 by 4.5, if I'm the Leafs, if I'm Brad Treliving, how could you possibly justify any more than that? With the exception of maybe 100, 500 grand, 750. It can't be $7 million for 4 years if Matt Duchene's getting 4.5. It can't.
It's got to be in the same neighborhood.
It has to be. It has to be, or you're simply cutting yourself out at the knees. Yeah, you are. If you're the Leafs, you're just admitting we can't win negotiations. Our players will never take a discount, and the rest of the league has a massive advantage that they apply to their players, and their players accept it, and we don't, and we can't.
I even think 4 years. Like, you guys know what I think of this scenario.
I know. I understand that.
The changing up the personality, and I'm not going to use. We're done with the DNA word, by the way. We've just that was the 18-wheeler, like heavy for about a month here, so it's over with the DNA. Just why is it 4 years? Like I don't know.
I think what you're trying to do is keep that number down. Like you're seeing managers. I get it, but we're just talking about every dollar being so important. So when you're constructing your team and going, okay, I'm just going to look at this next year in a vacuum. If I can get my 2/3 centerman or left winger, depending on where these guys are going to play, with something with a 4 in it or maybe low 5, like that looks a lot different, right? Yes, you might have to kick the can down the road. You did it with Tanev. You've done it with who else got the long-term deals? We were talking about it with Frederick and guys. Like you're seeing, I think term is the currency right now with some of these players.
Let me tell you how I look at it. Let me tell you how I look at it. How would you characterize John Tavares' play in the series against the Florida Panthers?
A lot like the rest of them, invisible.
I'm not talking about the rest of them. I want to focus on him individually.
Okay.
Yeah, he blended into the series. He didn't make an impact on the series.
So if the Florida Panthers aren't going anywhere, to your point, Hayes, how they've got all these guys locked up, and that's the bar, and you're looking to get over the hump and topple over them, why is it a priority for a guy that blended into a series if you're looking to get over the top? Is it just because you need a guy? Is that what we're
Well, that would be my assumption. I mean, listen, they respect John. They like John. John's a good player. Like, it's not.
There's a lot of respected players in the league, but they're just not handed contracts because they're respected.
I totally agree with you. And I would guess, again, I don't know this, but my assumption would be there's a fear you can't replace him. Now, I don't think that's a smart way of managing. If you're managing out of fear, you're probably losing before you start, quite frankly. Right. If your move is, well, I just got to do this because what else am I going to do? Then it's probably going to be malpractice. It's probably not going to be a smart play. And that's where, again, with John, what's a little bit different. Again, it's kind of similar to Duchene, although it should be even more extreme because this is his hometown and he's been here longer. Frederick has no allegiance to Edmonton. He's an American kid that got traded there. He's probably like, I'm a UFA. You got to pay me to stick around. Like, this is the way it works.
That's fair.
John, again, and it's easy for us to say, but if I'm the Leafs, I'm playing the role of the Maple Leafs, I think you have to put pressure on him. And we've said this for a month and a half, but you got to, John, you got to prove how badly you want to win and be a Leaf. If you really want to win and be a Leaf, you can't make $6 million a year. That can't be the cap hit. It's got and literally it's Matt Duchene. He wants to stay. He wants to be in a good spot. He wants to win. And sure, the state tax stuff, I get it. Maybe maybe I'd tag on $500,000 a year. It can't be $3 million more. It can't be. Well, the player needs the money. Well, then he doesn't go pull a Stamkos.
I told you they gave him $80 million already.
Yes, and listen, he deserved it as a free agent, and they signed it too. The Leafs, it wasn't charity. The Leafs,
but the return was 2 playoff series wins.
Yes,
so it's why is there more of a reward here? Why are we circling back?
Okay. And that's what's more extreme even about the Stamkos lesson. He gave them 2 cups, face of the franchise for 11, 12, 13 years, and they said, Matt Duchene
We're going
deal.
in a different.
Well,
they probably said Matt Duchene deal, and he's like, "No way, I'm out of here." All right, see you later.
In the end,
sorry.
Yes.
Moving on.
But we actually started the show just like this, though. You got management that was you just pointed out. Tampa is willing to be hardline and go, we're going to move past our captain, face of the franchise. Here, it's been different. It's been core 4, core 4, core 4. Now, this seems like the first year that's not going to be the case. Mitch Marner is forcing that issue. But you do have options of how you want your team to be constructed if you're Brad Treliving. Because right now, technically, if he lets this walk to July 1st, he's got $11 million extra in his checkbook on John Tavares' contract. And Mitch Marner's, will call it 11 too. Yeah, so Brad Treliving has an opportunity to really reconstruct this roster if he wants and if he deems. Now, he might deem John Tavares' value at $5 million. That's a hell of a bargain, and we like him and we know him, and we think with the other players were coming in, he would be fine with that word you don't want us to say, but that's of the group. So, in the end, there is flexibility here. That's and a lot of it, Hayes, what you're saying, Brad Treliving owns the flexibility right now. It's not John Tavares. If he wants to play here, it's what Tree puts in front of him, puts it and offers him.
Yeah.
That's kind of what you're saying.
I do wonder, I'd like to be a fly on the wall on this Duchene deal and how it affects the conversations. Because both parties have been talking. That's been well reported that John and the Leafs and, it's been the last 6 weeks, it's been it could happen any day now, and it never happens. And I'm curious if there was a deal close and this has some effect on it one way or the other. All right, we got Brian McCabe coming up. Caber is back on the program.
God, for a guy in management, he couldn't have gotten closer to the front of the picture.
He was right in the
weasel
middle.
move.
Fake
first
teeth
time, the
and
first thing we got to ask him, what a creepazoid move to get that far. He basically was one of the players holding the cup on the bottom row.
I think he was blocking Bobrovsky out of the picture. He was blocking guys.
What an idiot.
I love it. He's a 2-time cup winner, man. He's going to have his day with the cup again, and we got to ask him. When you had your day with the cup, was Pritchard offering him drinks? Is he what's the story? What happens here? So we'll
I want to know if Pritchard commented on McCabe's bald spot. That's what I want to ask.
Well, Caber's, I think he's FaceTiming in, so we're going to be front and center.
I think his salad is glorious. I didn't see him.
I'm going to ask him.
I thought he looked great in the pics.
I don't think it's unprofessional to say, ass, can you turn around and show us your bald spot?
This is the thing. We got to be careful here. This is a 2-time Cup champion.
Okay.
Yes, he's a dear friend of ours, but we need to show him respect. You can't.
He
first
deserves
of all,
it.
Remember, is it ass face or ugly face? I think
ugly. We'll go ugly. We'll go ugly.
Okay, but it's still that's we cannot joke
I'm
from the
not
bridge.
calling him that.
Don't you dare font him as ugly face.
At the end, I'm going to say, ugly, can you show us your bald spot?
I hope he's wearing his cup ring is what he should be wearing, right? And he'd be bracing for a second one. So Caber's coming up. We got Craig on the show today, tracking the Jays. We got Game 6 of the NBA Finals tonight. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4.
Back to Overdrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
All right, Overdrive continues, powered by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. We've got Craig Button coming up in just over half an hour. We've got Game 6 of the NBA Finals tonight. Our best bets on that. Your boy Rory McIlroy with a pretty decent first round.
Wow.
Down at the Travelers. Everything's all good.
My guy, Giordano Spieth, though, now he's got a back problem, and it's a mess. Like, that's it.
That's it for you? You're not doing this anymore?
If I take Giordano Spieth again, you have to say, actually, no, you're not, and I'm selecting a guy for you.
Okay.
I'll cut you off.
Yeah,
Noodles,
Noodles, and you have to step in and pick a guy. I don't care. But if I say Giordano Spieth, it's not a real pick.
No,
okay.
No.
Doesn't count anymore.
No.
It comes to an end, and we'll pick somebody else. All right, Brian McCabe will join us here in a moment. And, I was talking to someone about the elbow room today and the amount of free press that they have gotten the last 2 years.
Oh, my God.
Where everything's elbow room. Like, are there any other bars in Fort Lauderdale and the Miami area?
There are, but it's just
zillions.
I mean, you go back. I was there in 06. That was the place we went as players.
That's been the hockey bar since hockey got down there. I don't know why that is, how it happened, who was the original guy that started hammering beers in there in the afternoon.
Yeah.
But, Hayes, you were down there at the –
You know what's amazing?
The draft. The draft. Every hockey person went there at night.
Yes.
Of all the nice places in Lauderdale, everyone went there.
Do you remember whose draft it was that we were down there for?
Mitch Marner, McDavid.
Connor McDavid. That's how it came up this morning. I'm like, you know what? I was in that building when he got drafted, and he's been in there twice to watch the opponent skate around the ice with a Stanley Cup. Kind of crazy.
What a building for his memory bank.
Yeah, what a wild building in his history.
That's right. Like, you think about that. I forgot. Like, yeah, we were there. I mean, the proximity of that bar is just perfect, right? It's, right on the corner, right on the beach, but it's just gritty, and it gets great pub because everybody goes there in the league.
Yeah.
We used to go there as players. But, yeah, 97, man, he's had great moments there to get drafted first overall, and then now since coming back. And I think even regular season, there's a stat where they haven't gone in there and won. Like, it's been a house of horrors for the Oilers.
Yeah,
so that's not good.
It does propose like an interesting question next year. Like that, it'll be a build-up when they play. They only play each other twice, but it's it definitely is going to have a different feel this time around for McDavid and the Oilers.
Yeah.
But yeah, the elbow room, man. That's where the players are. They've been there the whole time. I don't know if the staff is kicking around. Like, do the players allow?
I bet
the
you
staff?
Caber.
Like, is Caber kicking around there?
He's probably in there in a pair of khakis and a tight tuck, don't you think?
tight polo shirt, Panthers polo. Here he is, two-time Stanley Cup winner with the Florida Panthers, Brian McCabe. Yes, Caber. How you doing, buddy?
The boys, the band's back together. It's been a minute, fellas.
Great to see you.
Now that you won back-to-back cups, we're allowed to talk to you, Caber. We love it. We want to ask you first. We want to ask you first off, like, were you contemplating getting on the ice front row in the pick because you were in tight?
Oh, I did. Well, last year I made the corner of the book there. Right on the edge where, like, the last part of the picture was just my face. So I had to kind of squeeze in a little closer and get this big fat head in there this year.
I love it, man. It's got to be incredible. Like, what is your last 48, 72 hours been like? How much can you remember? How many people are asking you what it's like down there? What has life been like for you the last couple of days?
It's been crazy, a little surreal. It still hasn't sunk in. I honestly cannot believe we just went back to back. And, all the credit goes to this group of guys, man. What a team. And I don't know, it's a different feeling this year. Last year we're on the edge of our seat. 2-1 game 7. They're all over us. The goalies pulled. So it was different emotions, anxiety and stuff. And this year, man, the boys just, dominated. Like, it was like they just frickin' willed their way to this thing the last 2 games. And it was obviously special. Had my whole family here this time, which means a lot. Had my mom and brother fly down. All my kids and wife were here this year, so it was nice to be able to enjoy it with them this time around.
So, Caber, you just said the domination, especially games 5 and 6, where you really took control. Was there a point where maybe anywhere through the playoffs that you had a little bit of doubt where you're like, God, I don't know if it's all going to come together, or even maybe near the end of the season where you guys were resting and had some players that, you had to move around and all of that type of stuff? Was there any doubt at any point until obviously everything came together against Edmonton?
I don't know. I was nervous the whole time because obviously you guys know it's worse sitting up in a freaking press box than it is being on the ice. So I'd say there was some definitely anxious nerves after the Leafs came in here and beat us in game 6. I didn't know what was going to happen going back there. Obviously they have a good team too. And but like I said, our team, man, they just go about their business. They figured it out. They know how to win. They're well coached, and they obviously love each other. And just this has been such a special team to be a part of the last few years.
Ugly, when you say they know how to win, can you explain to a viewer or somebody driving around what that means? Like, what does that mean to a guy that plays beer league?
I'll tell you what. Like, remember the year we won the President's Trophy and then lost? We were winning games like 6-4 and 7-5, and you can win games like that in a regular season, but we didn't know how to win in the playoffs because you can't go outscore teams in the playoffs. It's just muck it up and do what you do. And I've just felt like since the last, I guess, probably 3 years, like that they've known how to buckle down, and we can win games any which way you got to win them. Close games, tight checking games, physical. You want us to score goals, the guys can do that too. So I just think that they have just turned a page, and they just know how to do it against different types of opponents. And it's just like old hat to them now. It's really awesome to watch and be a part of.
With Brian McCabe, and you're in player development, so I guess, a primary role for you is to try to find those characteristics in players. I mean, now that you've seen it twice with your own team, how does that apply to like younger players coming out? You have that Charlotte team that's been unbelievable too. Like, what is there like a characteristic you feel like you found as an organization that has helped you here? Because there's a lot of talented players in the world, but you guys have winners, talent with the winning pedigree. How have you managed to find that ingredient in so many players?
Well, I just think from the top down, it's just a trickle-down effect. And, I give Jordy and his staff in Charlotte a lot of credit for basically playing the same way that the Panthers play. Like, we don't really have one genuine superstar in Charlotte, and we're playing for the Calder Cup right now. And they've done that from sheer will and structure and just outworking teams and grinding teams down in series, just like our team's done here. And it's been a lot of fun to be a part of. I couldn't be happier for that team in Charlotte. That staff there works so hard. And as you guys know, we haven't had a ton of draft picks over the past few years trying to build this team up. And they've had to sign college free agents and develop guys. And they've done a fabulous job. And we're in the mix to hopefully win another championship. Big game tonight in Abbotsford. So hopefully they can tie that thing up too.
With Brian McCabe, you look at what the Panthers did to superstars throughout this run, like completely neutralized Kucherov in the first round, Point in the first round, Matthews and Marner in many ways in the second round, Aho in the third, and then McDavid and Draisaitl games 3, 5, and 6, effectively were kind of blending into the series. Like how impressive is that to watch it live and to know like what's going on with the secret sauce behind the scenes to prepare for it? But like beating McDavid and Draisaitl in back-to-back Cup finals, like how is that even possible?
It's a total group effort, and I know a bunch of the guys spoke on this during the interviews the other night. But the depth that we have in this team and organization and everyone playing the same way, and there's no drop off, and no one cares about accolades or points and stuff. They're all in for one goal, and it just shows like the way they played and just shut the best players in the world down as a group. It was really, really special to watch.
Caber, you're in that management group with Billy Zito. You got, as you mentioned, you win the President's Trophy, but you didn't get to you didn't get to win that year, and it's a build. But Billy Zito's been a guy who's been not shy to be proactive and think outside the box and take big swings. I mean, do you feel like that's a recipe as well to not just safe as death type of thing? Like, he's made some big trades that have been organizationally changing. And even you add at the deadline this year, you got to bring in a guy like Marchand, who was a difference maker. Do you feel like Billy's, found an aggressiveness to him that pays off?
Yeah, like 100%. He deserves a ton of credit here. He showed some serious balls in some of the trades that he's made. Like the Tkachuk trade obviously started this whole thing, bringing him in. And then, we got frickin' Jonesy, we got Rhino, we got Marshy at the deadline. Like, some of those trades weren't easy to make. Like, you're getting rid of a lot of really good players or draft picks and stuff, and it takes some cojones to like put it out there and actually go through with it. We can talk all we want in the rooms about it, but you actually, he's the face of the franchise, and at the end of the day, it's his call, and he's put a lot of these pieces in place to make us successful. And as you've seen, the proof's in the pudding. Everyone's clicked and gelled together, and I think Marshy was just the icing on the cake. I think everyone agrees, like, he fits the way we play. Like, it was like a seamless transition. I don't think there was any better fit in the history of the world than him coming to our club, and the way he embraced it and our guys embraced him. I think it just, it was spectacular.
You mentioned started with Tkachuk. Like, what about him coming to Florida, other than his hockey skill set, was so important in the development of the team?
The biggest thing for me, like, as you know, there's a lot of different hockey players, a little different nowadays and stuff. First thing Chucky did when he got down here was took the whole training and equipment staff out for a big dinner and night out. Old school style, like we grew up doing. He was brought up like that, Big Walt, and did a great job with those boys. And I think he just brought that energy and that old school mentality, and you treat everyone, especially those guys, the heart and soul of every team, the trainers and the guys that are hanging bags at 5 a.m. I think it started with him just bringing that group together. And I think it took a little pressure off of Barkey. Barkey's a quiet guy, but he shows up every night and leads by example. And I just think their personalities meshed well together, and the other group just jumped right on their backs and just kept going from there.
With Brian McCabe, we were talking about the elbow room prior to you coming on. What's the rules, regulations with management in the elbow room when the players are there partying? Were you jumping in on that, or what's the deal
as
there?
Much as God knows, you guys know, I'd love to be there. I kind of feel that it's the players' time. They did the work. They went through the grind. Yeah, we're a small little piece of that, but we got to enjoy it obviously the night of with the group, but let them go crush the elbow room. They deserve everything the next couple weeks, and let them have their fun. I'm sure we'll have some staff fun here on the sides, but, I couldn't be happier for them. I love the fact that they were there at 9 a.m. and they're doing it upright. They deserve it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we always talk about, days with the cup, and I know you had one last year and you'll have one again this year. What is the deal with, like, the Philip Pritchard or the keeper of the cup? While you're having your day, are they involved? Are you offering them drinks? Like, what comes with the cup when it shows up for your day with the cup?
Oh my God, those guys are unbelievable. They got, you think looking at it, looks like a great job to have, but when you've been to a couple of these cup parties, it's a tough job, man. Dealing with a bunch of hooligan friends from Canada that, like, it's basically they're babysitting every day. But those guys are unbelievable. I had Mario and Glenn for my cup day, and Mario made himself breakfast and cooked a family breakfast, and they hung out with us all day. They are unbelievable guys, that whole staff, the keepers of the cup, and just to be a part of having those guys around. And, that cup day was really special. I think I had like 200 and some people. Like, I didn't leave any stone unturned because it took 50 years to get here. So we did it upright. It was certainly special. Those guys are the best, man. I honestly, those guys, they go through a lot and they get to see a lot, but they're the salt of the earth crew, and I can't wait to see them all again.
Uggie, you said your brother was at the celebration, who has possibly the best nickname in the NHL. How did Snake enjoy the cup?
Snake enjoyed it. It was nice to have him here this year. Like last year, it was kind of a gong show. I had him there Game 4. We got pumped 8-1, and then unfortunately, during the process of the Cup final, I lost my father-in-law before Game 6. So there was all that to deal with, a funeral and stuff. So none of my family could be here. So it was special to have Snake and Barb, my wife and kids here, and he was on the ice and got to, have some fun with all the festivities. And we actually had a laugh. We had dinner last night with my mom and brother, Noodles. And to this point, we were talking about this because I said I may go on with you guys tomorrow. And the most my brother has ever laughed in his life, we were at Stampede Week one year, and Noodles went on the dance floor and pretended he had a club foot. And I have never seen my brother laugh so hard. I think he almost peed his pants. And we were sitting at dinner last night, and he was laughing his head off again, giggling. And I said I'd give him a shout out today. But Noodles, I'm sure you remember that night.
I do remember something like that. I don't. It was a late night.
It was something like
Stampede night. I know those type of stories.
Stampede.
Those are for books.
Gone every year since I was 16, so we've done some things there that, we talked about even Jason Strudwick dancing on the dance floor. Yes, we've all had our moments on the dance floor at Stampede.
As
for
you
sure.
should.
I noticed you got a hat on.
In a while, O-Dog, I got to say something sincere, buddy. You look fabulous. Like, you look unbelievable. Like, playing weight, O-Dog. So cheers to you, buddy. I've never seen you look so good.
Can you do me a favor for, like, just what I've done in the gym? Can you show the boys your salad? Like, did you go full Messier?
Wearing a hat.
Well, here. Hey, I'm riding this till she bucks. I'm going 90s Messier. We just went back-to-back jacks, boys. Hey, if it ain't broken, don't fix it. I'm going to ride this windmill right to, until she stops working, boys.
As you should, man. That's a salad that's won 2 cups, Cameron.
Do I get the leather straps on the hat now, or no? Should I get the old windmill leather straps?
Comb it in a circle. It'll be just comb it in a circle. It'll work. It'll all blend together.
Everything blends in. I love it.
Getting younger, better looking, and thinner, and I just turned 50, balder, fatter. I'm going the opposite direction.
It's all good, man.
You're the best, pal. Thanks for doing this.
You look like a winner.
His teeth look great, too. Your teeth look great.
Teeth look phenomenal.
Yeah, they're not yellow anymore, man. They look awesome.
They're beautiful now.
Yeah.
You guys are the best, boys.
Great catching up with you, Caber. Congrats, man. Thank you for doing this.
All right, boys. Thanks. Cheers.
You got it. There he is, Brian McCabe. Oh, I miss that guy, man. He is some of the funniest chats we've ever had around the draft with Caber back in the day.
I'll never forget. You guys met him for a beer one night. I don't know what, and you guys came before we had to work the next day, and you were both crying and laughing at the stories that you guys were telling, and you just said, "That guy's so funny."
Oh, it was so good.
Remember how happy he was? He showed up to meet you and me, Brian, and he was wearing khakis, and it looked like he had padded underwear on. He was just jammed into these pants, and he had a tight tuck with the Panthers golf shirt on.
Oh, yeah.
He looked like $1 million.
The free Panthers golf shirt, and he came in motoring like James Brown.
Hot,
like he just was on fire immediately.
It was the best.
What a night. Yeah, Caber's the best, man. And that was that would have been a great party, and he's going to have another one, I guess, this year. Like, that's the beauty of it, right? When the dust settles, and you see they did some damage to the Stanley Cup too. Like there were some chips taken out of it.
Dude, it's
I like that though.
At the top.
Yeah. I know, but my mom calls me, and she's first thing, I don't even say hello. She's like, "Do you see they broke the cup?" I'm like, "It happens every year, Mom. Like these guys are animals."
I honestly think that when Pritchard comes down on a different flight later that day, there's 2 other replicas that follow it around in case something like this happens.
You're probably right. It could be.
It's because they're like, we're not wheeling this thing around, and it's going to come back to Toronto cut in half. If like that original, if that was the original, and who knows? Do you think the players are looking? Because I was at an event one time where it's not like you do these things with a Stanley Cup there. It's not the original Stanley Cup. There's replicas. Like there's other ones floating around. Mm-hmm. So who knows how they handle that? But I'm sure when they see that damage, they're like, okay, guys, the replica's out now. Have fun with that one.
Exactly. Like the most famous one, I think, was the Dallas Stars one where they were at Vinny Pantera's house. And, and somebody threw it from the second window tried to throw it in the pool, and it missed the pool. It falls short, so it bounced and then went in the pool. And that, like, rattled a few people. I have a few buddies that were at that party and said that was insane.
One would look and feel kind of bad. You like
that would give a horse eye from Philly Pritch.
Yeah, that one might snap someone out of a stupor and say that's enough. But, you know the whole thing is they're guys in their 20s and 30s who are drinking nonstop for 48 hours. What do you think is going to happen? You can hand them anything, a water bottle. You can hand them – it doesn't matter what you hand them. It's not going to survive.
Keep in mind, in the 80s, there was no Phil Pritchard. Like Grant Fuhr and Messier, those guys have told me stories of what they used to do. Messier was famous because he's from St. Albert, where I am. There was a strip club called the Bruin Inn, downtown St. Albert. The cup would be at the Bruin Inn. They'd leave it there. Like
that would be amazing. We're all leaving, and everyone's blackout at that. No one even takes the cup. It's just sitting there.
Go pick
at a peeler in St. Albert, Alberta.
Yes, like that type of stuff is.
Only imagine.
There's a reason why it
like.
has a chaperone, and I think it was those 80s Oilers that did that.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all. That would be a great, maybe one of the all-time great. You give me a documentary where you show me the greatest week run with the cup. Like whatever it is, whichever team it is. And, 30 for 30 where you're going to break it down from like 5-1 or 10-1. And, because it could be any, like, it may surprise you. It was actually the 1964 Detroit Red Wings. You wouldn't believe what these guys did or, whatever it might be. But, all right, Craig Button in about 15 minutes. We're tracking the Jays. We got Bobby Marks coming up later this afternoon on the Lakers. Ownership change, the amount of money that is going into the Lakers. And we'll tee up Game 6 of the NBA Finals as well. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. prompted, and you're in the draw. You'll see Olivia Rodrigo, the Killers, Gracie Abrams, and more with Gold Weekend passes. Plus, we'll hook you up with travel thanks to tripcentral.ca, a 4-night stay at Montreal Marriott Chateau Champlain, and $500 spending money. Listen every day for more chances to win. It was great catching up with Brian McCabe. He's, obviously a happy guy, as he should be. It's amazing the juxtaposition between watching Panthers people, speak and do stuff and talk, and watching the Oilers today. It's just like it's so demoralizing. You're that close twice. Yeah. Like it.
Yeah, but he talked about, even as an executive, like there's no like comfortable moments. Like when that was 4-0, you want it 5 and you want it 6, and you're like, make this over.
Interestingly, too, he said after the Leafs went in their Game 6 and played the way they played. And that's, again, we don't have to keep digging that up, but that's the crazy thing. They played so poorly Game 5, and then Game 6, they were outstanding in Florida.
Yes.
Completely shut them down, completely pushed them out of the game. Matthews shows up big, Marner shows up big, and I felt the same way. I'm like, you know what? They're ready to play Game 7, and we all know what happened. Hour 2 coming up. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.
This is OverDrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog on TSN 1050.
Hour 2 OverDrive continues, powered by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Brian Hayes, the O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles, McLennan, Craig Button coming up here in a few moments. Bobby Marks later in the hour on Game 6 NBA Finals and the Lakers sail. The Jays are getting pumped this afternoon, but they won big last night.
Big one last night.
Big one last night.
Bo set the tone.
Yes, he did. First pitch. Was it first? Yeah. First, definitely his first at bat in the bottom of the first. And
what do you make of his play of late? Like, is he back?
A lot better, man.
But is it
great.
Like he's the real deal again, or we love him again, or what?
Yeah, I think so, man. I mean, I'm not going to get carried away and start talking stupidity about.
That's what sports is. We kind of. Like, it's what you do it's what you do for me lately. If you're awesome, we love you, and if you stink the joint out, we want you on another team.
You're right. Well, listen, they always say fans are fickle and all that. And listen, there is also the sensible side story of a good player just playing poorly, which is accurate too, or good player dealing with injuries, or good player overpaid, or bad player underpaid. You know, there's different elements to the reaction. But this is a classic case of you play the games. You know, like, we all know what you're capable of doing. If you play poorly, what do you want people to say? That you pretend it's not happening? You know, and then when you play great, you got to acknowledge playing great. Bo's been great. Vladdy's been great recently. Kirk's been great. Barter's been great. Everything's going well. Everything's going well. The Yankees keep losing. It's a good thing right now in the American League East.
Vladdy's only got 9 dingers. I'd like to see him hit for
a little bit more power.
Length. Yeah,
sure.
A little bit more length.
Absolutely. But as we were talking about it yesterday, Noodles, it was around this time last year where he just jumped on a rocket ship and took off.
Yeah.
So give us a great second half. The Yankees had lost 6 or 7 in a row. They were I think they won today. They did. They beat the Angels, so they stopped the bleeding. But the Rays have been good. The Jays have been good. Sox have been good. More on that a little bit later this afternoon. I'm just seeing this article come out that Shedeur Sanders, you've seen this, has been cited twice this month for speeding. And I believe it's in Cleveland or in Ohio. And at one point he was going like 40 over. And
miles.
Miles, yes. What are you doing? Like, you've already got a spotlight on you. People are wondering what's going on with Shedeur Sanders. Again, this isn't the end of the world, but it's not what you need when you just got through camps and by all accounts played very well. Like, you're getting cited multiple times for speeding.
Yeah.
Like, just get to camp and don't allow anything to get in your way. Don't do something self-inflicting that will cause you more of a stir.
From all that you've seen, does it surprise you? The answer is no.
Well, again, I don't know what his history is behind the wheel, but again, it's just, it's silly. Tuesday morning, he was driving 41 miles per hour over the speed limit, like just flying, and what are you doing, Shedeur? Smarten up, get to camp, figure it out. All right, we've got Bobby Marks later in the hour, and the Stanley Cup has been handed out, which means it's draft season. Here's our director of scouting at TSN joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Here's Craig Button. How you doing, Craig?
I'm good. I have to answer Jeff's question. No, I'm not surprised. No. He's got enough history of showing that he's stupid and he's immature. So what do you expect? And you got a talent there. Why did he go in the 5th round of the NFL draft? What did Tom Brady say when Dion phoned him and asked him what kind of car he should get? Mm-hmm. And Tom Brady said, I suggest he gets into the film room and does some studying. Like Sanders' priorities, they're all wrong. And until he gets them in order, this is just going to be another, what's next? The NFL sent a message to Sanders. We're not really interested in you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Why would you be?
We're putting the pressure on you to prove everyone wrong. And again, he's not going to jail or anything, but still, you get cited twice in Ohio. That's where you're going to be living and playing and trying to perform. Everything counts. And it's an interesting question. Again, as I said, Craig, we're into draft season now. The NHL draft, NBA draft, right around the corner. You've been on both sides of it for decades now. The talent, the game tape is one thing. How much of the evaluation process is away from the rink? Take us through that process if you're a GM, director of scouting, whatever it happens to be, and you're looking at committing to upwards of 7, 8, 9, 10 different kids next week.
Yeah, and I think that you're always trying to find. I mean, everybody uses the word character or whatnot. In my history, rarely have I come across players that weren't good people. Now, I don't think it's about being a good person or not. I think it comes down to, where are you going to take a chance on skill, where, there might be some value there. But most importantly, my question is really simply this: who can help you win? And I hope you guys aren't shocked when I say this. 300 players that are currently playing in the NHL don't help you win. That doesn't mean they're not good players at different levels. That doesn't mean they weren't good enough to be in the NHL. That doesn't mean that they're bad people. But that's the first question I ask. Who can help you win?
Yeah.
Greg, with the Florida Panthers going back-to-back and being to 3 straight finals, how difficult is it as a manager to not look at them as some kind of reference point when drafting, possibly signing players July 1st and wondering, we got to play against them, they're who we want to beat? Is it difficult to not do that?
No, I think it's prudent to look at the teams that have been successful. And I think the template is the same. I don't think the template changes with the Florida Panthers. It was the same for the Vegas Golden Knights. It was the same for the Tampa Bay Lightning when they won. It was the same for the Penguins. It was the same for the Red Wings. The template isn't changing. And we get focused in on the draft, and we get focused in on July 1st. There's so much more that goes into it outside of those days. And I think what you always have to be ready to do is evaluate what fits for your organization. I'll give you an example. Nate Schmidt and Dmitry Kulikov, who were the bottom pair for the Florida Panthers, they both played for Paul Maurice at different points. And so now Bill Zito's looking to build out his bottom group of his defense, and Paul becomes part of that. But I don't think it's just about, do you know them? It's about Paul saying, I know how these guys can maximize their abilities with our group. I know how to use them. And so that's one example. When you go to make a trade, when they made the trade in 2022 for Matthew Tkachuk, they traded 2 really good players in Huberdeau and Weegar. But it was the statement that Bill Zito made that said, we're changing the competitive tenor of our team. Sam Bennett was always competitive, and he's emerged really nicely. But you look at the Florida Panthers. Tell me what player is not competitive on that team. Start. Right. Okay, yeah, that's right. You don't have anybody because there is nobody, because they're committed to finding those players that are committed to being competitive in multiple situations. It's not just Barkov or Reinhart. It's all those players. It's Lundell. It's Luosterainen, and they get Luosterainen in a trade. They get Forsling on waivers. They pick up Seth Jones. Look what he comes in there. And I think that you're always trying to remind yourself what fits for us, to your point, Jeff, to what is going to give you ultimate success. I'm going to come right back to what I say in the draft. Who helps you win?
So you just laid out competitive nature. Where in your depth chart would be IQ, like hockey IQ, thinking the game at a high rate? Would you sacrifice that for maybe a little speed, for something else on your maybe bucket list or on your check mark list?
I don't want dumb players. Period. I'm not sacrificing it. Buddy Ryan, the NFL coach, he was a great assistant coach and a head coach. He had a line. He goes, you need smart players and you need players that play hard. He goes, the dumb player will hurt you and the non-competitive player will never help you. That's where I'm at, Jamie, and I've never wavered, and I'm never going to waver. And people will look at lists and say, "Oh, yeah, you don't have, I recognize skill, and I think what I do now is a little bit different than when I worked with a team because you have to recognize skill." But trust me, the teams are looking down their lists and they're going, "Yeah, he might play in the NHL, but he ain't playing for us."
Right.
With Craig Button, so the Matt Duchene contract today, he re-signs in Dallas, 4 years, $4.5 million.
Here we go.
If you're Brad Treliving and you're waiting for a call from the representative of John Tavares, How are you using the Duchesne deal and applying it to your conversations with John?
Well, this is a big thing with Matt Duchesne. Matt Duchesne signed a $56 million 7-year deal with the Nashville Predators. He ended up getting bought out. And now when you look at the 4 years that he got in terms of total salary, he got $36 million from Nashville, plus his buyout of $13.33 million, plus now what he's signed with Dallas. Over the course of the 7 years, when it ends next year, that'll be the 7-year cycle, he will have made more in AAV at 8.55 approximately than what he was making at $8 million when he signed that contract. So, the Dallas Stars took advantage of a situation, and certainly Matt, it fit for Matt and whatnot. But, I mean, when you look at the whole overall value of the 7 years, it's more. So I don't think unless John Tavares comes to Brad Treliving and says, hey, you know what? I'm happy to play here. Put a number on paper if it's $5 million. I can't speak for John Tavares. Maybe that's what's important to him. But at the end of the day, I think if John Tavares gets to the market, he's going to be very, very surprised and happy at the same time what teams are willing to pay him.
Well, that is the truth. And what
is that number, guys? Like, what does that mean, Craig?
He had 38 goals. I think that number is $7.5 million, maybe $8 million. Steven Stamkos signed for $32 million over 4 years last summer. You can't tell me that what John Tavares did this year isn't a similar framework.
Yeah, well, I think that's a reasonable I think it's an accurate comparison. Now, the difference would be now we've seen what happened with Stamkos in Nashville, and I'm curious if teams look at that and say maybe we should take that into consideration. Secondarily, Stamkos is a Stanley Cup winner and John's not. I'm trying to figure out how you put the two together. I mean, there's 31 other teams, so if it's a team that's not thinking we're Cup competitive right now, $7 or $8 million. If you're in a Cup window, I don't know if you can justify that for John. And I think the Leafs are different personally. I mean, I look at the Leafs like they gotta start winning some of these contracts. They gotta, I think, hold his feet to the fire. And if he doesn't want to agree to that, no problem. But if I'm the Leafs, I'm looking at this saying I can't pay you $7.5. There's just no way.
Which is fair, Brian. And like so if John wants to come back to the Toronto Maple Leafs and play for less than what he can get in the open market, I fully get that.
Yep.
I mean, John has loved playing for the Toronto Maple Leafs. He's been a terrific person representing the Toronto Maple Leafs. He's been a very, very good player for the Toronto Maple Leafs. But you're right. So if other teams and you want to justify it, but I think John, you just hit something that I think is that I would suspect is important to John Tavares. Where could I go to have a chance at winning the Stanley Cup? And I think that he would be willing to take less money to go to a contender than he would to take less money to play in Toronto.
Yeah, and that is a very important conversation that I don't know if Leaf fans want to hear right now. Like, people are getting crazy with the McDavid stuff. If he wants to win, the Leafs haven't won in 60 years. Like, the Leafs aren't the pinnacle of winning.
Yeah, that's not the threat, I don't think.
Yeah, it's not like the threat is not the Leafs will help you win. I mean, and let's be clear, like John came up here, he wanted to win. Of course he wanted to win, but he also wanted to come home. He wanted to play at home, and that is an interesting question. Like, what are the priorities right now? Is it comfort? Is it home? Is it winning? Is it money? And we don't have the answers, but we're going to find out in the next week and a half.
So would it surprise you guys if he waited to see what the Toronto Maple Leafs do? Like, who they could acquire in free agency? How the fallout of free agency, i.e. Mitch Marner, whatever Brad does, where John just sits back and goes, "Hey, wait, you know what? I'm just gonna take my time here." Would that surprise you?
Well,
it wouldn't surprise me.
It wouldn't surprise you, Craig? You're saying
no, if he waited.
Yeah. See, that's the game of chicken that fascinates me, because I think what John could be risking is the Leafs say, "Actually, we found something, and it's a replacement, and thank you for your services." Like,
anyone plays the waiting game, it's always a risk for someone to be sitting.
It could go the other way,
standing without a chair.
Right. And that's the question: that like who's in a position of power right now? Is it John or is it the Leafs?
It wasn't a risk for Nazem Kadri. He waited.
Yeah. And in terms of what, when he went
to Calgary?
When he went to Calgary afterwards. Yeah. Well, he got paid, that's for sure. But do you think he wanted to stay in Colorado?
Well, I think that he was trying to find a way to stay in Colorado. But I mean, the money became such that I don't think good players are ever going to pay a price. And again, if the agent and John is represented by CAA, they're top quality agents and representatives. Stamkos is represented by Newport. We know how the top agents operate. So much like Nazem Kadri, hey, here's what we're looking at. Nazem Kadri was offered more money outside of Calgary, but the fit in Calgary and the communication that they were continuously having to try to make it happen. And Brad Treliving was the manager there when he signed him.
Right.
And so Brad had to do some maneuvering, and had to move some money out and move some players out, and he did do that. And that's why I say, I don't think John Tavares will get hurt by waiting. I think John Tavares, if he really wants to stay in Toronto, he just got to be honest and say, here's what I'm waiting to see what you guys can do. Because I think that John is focused on trying to find a way to compete for a Stanley Cup.
So, Craig, do you think there's going to be a lot of, like with the unrestricted free agent list, would you argue, or do you think that there's going to be more action as far as proactive managers trying to trade for players? Just it being, I wouldn't say a watered-down list, just a unique type of list. You've got a few top-end guys and then, some real serviceable players, but not superstars.
I think that'll be the case. I definitely agree with you, Jamie, in that regard, because I think that there's teams that are looking at their own situation, trying to maneuver whether they're trying to sign a free agent and they need to free up some money for trade a player. Some of the younger players, because some of the younger players that are coming into a new salary cap scenario, and let's face it, the landscape now is changing enormously. And players want to get paid. And, you heard, Jamie, what Matthew Tkachuk said the other day. I'm a players guy. I'm telling them to go get as much money as they can. And so teams now have to recognize that too. So, and the players with the flat cap, haven't been able to really, maximize or to maximize to any real extent, their opportunities. Well, now that opportunity is opening up, and I think that opens up for the RFAs. I think that opens up for the potential UFAs next summer. And now, how does that translate into movement? And so, I think those are the reasons why we'll see some more of the trades and younger players being moved, players with 1 year left on their contract being moved because of that reason.
Yeah, it appears as if there's like a world in the middle there where if you're a GM that is willing to be patient and push your timeline down the road a little bit, you could possibly take advantage of what feels like a lot of desperation in the league right now.
And can I throw in one thing too, guys? And it's a question more: is there any team that right now we believe are in a rebuild?
Well, I mean, Chicago and San Jose, they're continually, they're continuing their process.
I think there's a ton of teams above them that are phonies that think they're doing something and going somewhere, and they're going absolutely nowhere.
Well, the reason I say this, and Craig, I want you to weigh in, is you keep hearing, a lot of teams are buyers or in on it, going to be in on this, and listen, Chicago and San Jose, absolutely. They've got cap space. They've got to make their team better to surround their young players with good players. But I'm like, is Pittsburgh potentially in a rebuild? What is Vancouver going to do? I'm not suggesting they should. I'm just saying, I look at teams, because when we talk about the trade market, I want to hear who's available.
Jamie, if you talk about Pittsburgh having players available, who wants to get those aging players there? Or a guy that you don't know what you're going to get in Carlson?
Well, I mean,
Sid's the guy, but that's a different story, clearly. But you're right.
Together.
What is Malkin? We'll ask you, Craig. Let's say Malkin calls up Dubas and goes, "Fine, I'm out. You're not going to extend me or whatever. Or put me on the trade block." What does that deal even look like for Evgeny Malkin?
Yeah, it probably means. I mean, his contract, I think it's $6.25 million. I think a team can absorb that. But Rickard Rakell and Brian Rust are pretty decent players.
Yeah.
And so let's forget about those guys. But Jamie, just to your comment, and I'm going to tag it with Jeff's as well, is that patience. So why don't we ask? How about if I ask the question differently, or answer answer it with a question? How many teams are really close to competing for a Stanley Cup? So wouldn't it be prudent for them to be a little bit more patient instead of chasing their tails? To Jeff's point, teams think they're doing something, and then they go, oh, geez, what a mistake. And I think that's where teams can take advantage. Recognizing where you're at. We know where San Jose's at. We know where Chicago is at. I think everybody knows where Pittsburgh is at. But now you're looking at other teams, and you're going like the Islanders aren't Stanley Cup contenders. The New York Rangers aren't Stanley Cup contenders. I think Dallas has got to ask themselves some real serious questions. Who's going to be available out of Dallas when you look at their cap space? So if you're patient, there's players that are going to become available that nobody even knows right now who's going to be available. So, But if you don't have the flexibility, now you can't act. And I think that becomes something that's pretty significant as well.
Yeah, that is the beauty of it, where there's going to be a couple of moves that happen this summer, and it probably happens every summer, where the headline will be the one team getting a player or getting a couple players. And then you'll look at it 6-7 years down the road and say, man, look who the other team got. And no one was buzzing about that because they got the kid or they got the picks, and that pick turned into this guy. It happens all the time, but that's not sexy. It's not going to sell tickets, but it may be the shrewd move, Craig, to take on that viewpoint.
Exactly, Brian. Listen, I'm a big believer that unless you're in Toronto, unless you're in the huge markets in football, baseball, and there's very few of them, winning sells tickets, not individual players, and that's the thing. Now, could a player sell a little bit? Yeah, we know it can happen. Bob Gainey said this when we worked together in Dallas. He said sometimes there's only one thing worse than not getting a player in free agency. It's getting a player in free agency. So you better be careful.
Yeah, I like that line. And that is true. That is very, very true. All right, Craig. Well, it's going to be a busy couple of weeks for you, as it always is, but we're looking forward to seeing everything leading up to the draft and free agency, and we'll do it again soon. Thank you for this.
We will. Yeah, thanks, guys. It'll be fun.
You got it. There he is, Craig Button.
Brian, you make a great point. So I'm just looking back and thinking about this, too. Erik Karlsson, who was, there's times on this show, what do we call him? Second best player on the planet, behind Sid when he was 2017 type of thing. So he gets traded to San Jose. If you look at that trade tree, it ended up, not on paper early on, the players coming back, but that ended up in Tim Stützle and Josh Norris. So really it's Tim Stützle and Dylan Cousins. That's their 1 and 2 centermen.
Pretty good deal.
That Ottawa ended up with because of Erik Karlsson.
Mm-hmm. For the next 10 years, if they choose to do so.
But that's what I'm saying. So you're saying 7 years down the road is not as sexy. That's what happened with Erik Karlsson.
But that's what you got to do, Jamie. If you're going to move out a player of Karlsson's ilk, you got to hit on who you're bringing back, or else your franchise is stuck in the mud and you never do anything.
Well, that's
then you're like, wow, we're still junk, and these guys didn't pan out. It's like you've got to make them hit.
You got to hit. Yeah. But, you look at it, and this will maybe be a list for me. In fact, I might put this together for tomorrow. There's a lot of desperate teams in the league. Toronto's one of them. Edmonton's one of them. Mm-hmm. Dallas is one, like you mentioned, Craig mentioned. I think
you've got that level of desperation, and then you've got desperation to make the playoffs,
right? There's
or
different
not be
levels
terrible.
Of it. Different, but the pressure that I'm talking about, those teams are we got to win a cup next year. We're there. We got to find a way to do this, and we got to put pieces together. That's pressure. That's desperation. It's those middle teams that might get caught in that trap where it's man, I got to make the playoffs, and my owner's going to fight. And I get it. There's pressures that come with it. But if you can have the courage and the vision and the patience to maybe be you know what, I'm going to take advantage of a market that's desperate, trade a couple players that are popular, that are good, that aren't going to be a part of our program in 2 or 3 years, and bring in a bunch of assets that are going to pop. That's how you can turn a big corner without a lot of people paying attention to it, possibly this offseason. Yeah. And, whether that's Buffalo or Detroit or, Nashville after the season they had, something there's you look at it and you're what, I'm going to put a couple players out there that are good players, 28, 29, that people pay a premium for, and I'm going to bring back assets and flexibility, and in 3 years, these trades are going to pay off big time.
Yep.
But it's easier said than done, man.
Yes.
You gotta have the stones to do it, and you got to sell it to ownership, and you're going to take heat from the fans who are like, "What are we doing? Why aren't we trying to get better? Why didn't we sign this guy or that guy?" And I think there's an avenue there for like shrewd GMs to pull that off.
You're right, but you have to have the confidence to do it. You have to have the relationship with the owner to do it. The owner has to have, some patience with his management team to go, yeah, all right, I see what you're doing here. I always think that Montreal's an interesting. What is it? Dregs brought that up yesterday or 2 days ago about I think Montreal's a fascinating case study now for me because they've got some young players that are turning the corner. Like they're on the rise. So I think but I think they're going to have a big off season. What does that look like, though? Like that's my question. What does that look like as far as either acquiring players or signing players or internal growth? That can be used there for sure.
I think it'll apply there for sure.
Yeah,
I do think it will apply there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll see, man. We're going to find out a lot about this league in the next couple of weeks.
Big time.
Pierre LeBrun on that, more still to come. Bobby Marks on the Lakers. Man, the owner of the Dodgers now owns the Lakers. You talk about clout in the LA sports scene. Those are the two biggest brands, two biggest teams. And what is this going to do for the Lakers, for Luka, LeBron, et cetera, moving forward? We'll catch up with Bobby on that. And Game 6 of the NBA Finals tonight, does it come to an end? Tyrese Haliburton will play. Does feel kind of like a formality, though. Oklahoma City could win and win big tonight. And if so, is this the beginning of a dynasty? That and more with Bobby Marks. He'll join us next.
Back to Overdrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
All right, so we were spitballing numbers on how much this Lakers purchase was going to be, and we actually nailed it. We threw out $10 billion, and that's what it turns out to be.
How much of LeBron being on that roster? Like, does LeBron equate anything? Does he represent anything in the sale or no?
I don't think it hurts. I think Luka being there probably doesn't hurt. You know, if you feel like
what if
you've got
they're the worst
superstar.
team in the league for 5 years? Like, just brutal. Like Detroit back in the day. Is it still $10 billion?
Yes.
It's the Lakers, man.
It's the Lakers. It's the brand, buddy. It's like selling the Dallas Cowboys. They are. Where would the Lakers be just in North America for as far as biggest brands out there? Right, like the Maple Leafs would be in there for sure, but I think it would be the Cowboys, the Yankees, the Red Sox, the Lakers.
They're in the top five
Knicks.
for sure.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
Like,
I think it's probably Yankees, Cowboys, Lakers would be the big three. I think for North American sports and predominantly American.
Right.
And the Leafs are big, but they're not as big as those three brands internationally. The Dodgers are making some noise with Shohei now.
Yeah,
Dodgers would be up there, and there's probably a number of NFL teams, and that is something that I'm sure Jerry Jones is paying attention to. Not that he's going to sell, but if the Lakers sold for 10, Cowboys, like what would they sell for? $15 billion?
Yeah, I think it's got to be at least 1.5 of that, maybe more. Like it just now again, I don't know the economics of it or whatever. Does he own the building, everything? Like
I believe
Jerry
he
Jones
owns
own the whole
everything.
shop, right?
I believe he does, which is wild when you think about it. That they play 8 or 9 home games a year.
That's it.
Like that's all they play, and it's worth that much money.
They're a city though. The NFL is a city. They're a country actually. The NFL could be a country. Like they've got a day of the week. They do. Remember during COVID. Everyone else is shutting down. They're like, we're going to play. We're going to just continue to power along.
Draft, everything.
They just do whatever they want.
Yep.
Like they just steamroll along. They are, they're like their own country. That's what they do.
That is, I think, a very good way of putting it. That they have access to stuff that just the average league does not have access to.
Yeah.
But it is incredible the amount of money, and immediately. There's this belief that the Lakers are going to transform into this unstoppable machine of money spending and new hiring. And I guess we'll see, I'll believe that when I see it. Like the Buss family, it was family owned, and that was, I believe, their primary source of income. Yet they won a lot. Like the Lakers have always won.
Yeah.
So how much can we reasonably expect it to change? Here is ESPN insider Bobby Marks joining us. Bobby, I guess we'll ask you that. Ownership change with the Lakers. How different could it possibly look in terms of the way the Lakers actually win and lose in the future based on this ownership change?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's different than what they were able to do with the Dodgers, where, you don't have a salary cap in Major League Baseball, and you can basically go out and pay, and they paid a lot of money to put that roster together. Here it's different when you're working within the confines of a salary cap. And if you want further proof, just look at Steve Ballmer. He's one of the wealthiest men in the world, and and what it teaches is you can't outspend your competition based on how stringent these rules are. I do think it will help whether it be from a staffing standpoint, from an infrastructure, because that organization, it's as much mystique, or they have, and everyone says it's the Yankees and the Lakers. There's a huge comparison. It's run like a mom and pop organization. It's not heavily staffed. Their basketball operations department is really small. So I do think from the non on the court resources, I think when you have a wealthy owner like that can come in and they don't own their arena, and I don't think there's any plans to build a new arena. So you're looking more of the things, more of the services that you can provide your players, whether it be as I said, kind of beefing up that basketball operations department.
Do you have any reason to believe that Luka will not sign his extension with the Lakers this summer?
I would be surprised if he didn't. I mean, just based on, he has said all the right things. And I just think it's going to be, is it going to be 3 years or it's going to be 4 years? I think it's probably, if you're asking me, I would say I would lean more towards 3 years and with a player option the third year, and it gets him back out in the market a few years from now here. So yeah, I would think so. I think, when, he said all the right things after the trade, and certainly as of late here, if he didn't, it would be, I would probably get caught off guard here.
Bobby, do you know if there's been any conversations between LeBron and Luka where he said, go take your 2 weeks in Europe and then you're not leaving my side until the season starts or anything like that? Because that's what I would do.
Well, I'll tell you what, the videos and the pictures I've seen, those 2 weeks in Europe, it look pretty good on him, man. He's lost a lot of weight. Unless it's someone's been doctoring those photos and everything here. This is an important year for Luka. We all know the brilliance of Luka when he's in fit condition. It's funny. I saw him I was in LA in March, I want to say, and he didn't look heavy to me, man. I don't know. Maybe the weight just fluctuates up and down here. But yeah, it's going to be an important offseason for him, whether he's in Europe or he comes back and he trains with LeBron here. I think he's been awakened as far as how this season has ended, and certainly the scrutiny that came with it.
Well, he's 26, Luka, and another 26-year-old is on the verge of winning his first title tonight, and that would be Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I feel like Oklahoma City likely wins tonight, even with Halliburton playing. And if that happens, we're going to look back on this season, and this is truly one of the great seasons ever. They ran off so many wins, and they kind of lapped the field, and they cruised to the NBA Finals. And if they win the final in 6, and Shai wins MVP, I think he likely wins Finals MVP, maybe Williams. But if you're any other team in the West, or for that matter, I guess the East, how do you catch up to Oklahoma City? Like, do you picture anyone this time next year actually being on par with the Thunder?
I don't. I mean, they've got all 15 players under contract for next year. They've got 2 picks in the draft, 2 in the first round at least, 15 and 24. They've got the potential of having 4 firsts next year in June. This team is, as the playoffs have kind of gone on, they've gotten better. Certainly Shai will likely sign an extension this offseason. The same with Jalen Williams and Chet Holmgren here. I think it's going to be, I don't want to say it's Golden State level. We saw them in that 2015 to 2018 range, but it could be awfully close here as far as how good this Oklahoma City team could be, because I do think they're kind of just scratching the surface as far as where they're going to be. I think it's interesting, if you have a minute, and you go back and you look at the article that Sam Presti, their president of basketball operations, wrote in 2019. It's in the Oklahoman, and he laid out with the vision of this roster what he thought this roster could be and how much patience it was going to be, and what if it did come to fruition, that it could be a championship team. And we're one game away from that reality hitting in Oklahoma City.
Well, Presti, man, what a run and what an operation, clearly, in Oklahoma City. And it in many ways started, I guess, with that Paul George deal that brought in Shai and all these picks. And you mentioned they got 2 in the first round, possibly 4 in the next round, or first round next year. Like, how would you think he's going to weaponize that? Because you can't bring in 6 new players in the next 2 years. Like, it doesn't make any sense. How do you expect him to weaponize that?
I think for this year's draft, I think one of them probably goes to, a draft and stash and to keep a player overseas. You got to remember too, they picked in the lottery last year, and they picked Nicole Topic, a young point guard from overseas who had an ACL injury, and he's really good. I mean, he's a point guard, and he's coming. So you have him, and then I think what the beauty of the draft picks is that, and we're going to talk a lot about the finances and the apron levels, and can they keep this roster together? Well, here's proof. When things become a little bit more expensive, now you have some of these low cost players on first round rookie contracts that maybe could replace, I don't know, Isaiah Hartenstein 2 years from now, or Lou Dort 2 years from now, and you basically just kind of you build around your 3 core guys and put Alex Caruso in there, and that's how you weaponize all these draft picks that are coming for them.
with Bobby Marks. Up here in Toronto, naturally, there's a lot of revisionist history and people reviewing what's happened here the last few years. And you look at Pascal Siakam and how well he's played. In that trade, the Raptors, they didn't seemingly get as much as a lot of people wished they did at the time, and even more so now. You see some of these deals happening with 4 and 5 first-rounders going out. How do you review the Raptors with the exit of Van Vliet, the trade of Anunoby, and the trade of Siakam now that the dust is settled?
I think probably a window an opportunity that you missed as far as the window that closed or shrunk as far as the max value that you could have maybe gotten for. OG is a little bit different because you have, with RJ and Emmanuel, two good players that you have. I think Pascal is, certainly different here as far as what's left of that trade. Certainly, Bruce is no longer there. One of those picks was traded to New Orleans in the Brandon Ingram trade. So I guess you can say you got Brandon Ingram. But yeah, I do think, and that's why I think Masai's done a great job, and why Sam Presti's done a great job in Oklahoma City is he kind of realizes, he knew when to move off Paul George, he knew when to move off Russell Westbrook, and did some of those deals. And once you kind of get past an expiration time, the value of a player becomes extremely lower. And I think we probably saw that firsthand with what happened with Pascal.
Where do you expect Kevin Durant to land? Do you think the Spurs might be the best spot for him, or maybe somewhere else?
Yeah, you know what? They have the most to go out and get him. I don't think they are as interested as it makes it look like. They're certainly one of 3 teams, I guess, that he's interested in. Houston, another team who's got a lot to offer. And Miami, not quite as much. I'm interested to see if there's going to be one of these wild card teams. Maybe we see Kawhi Leonard Part 2 up in Toronto there, as far as taking a flyer on a guy on an expiring contract and what we call pre-free agency, the ability to try to sell. I don't know. I mean, I think Phoenix is open for business with all 29 teams, even though Durant has a list. But it comes down to the ability to how much are they going to get for him? Is he going somewhere where he might not sign an extension? Does the team care if he doesn't sign an extension? I think some of these Eastern Conference teams look at what Indiana's been able to do in a wide open Eastern Conference next year, especially with Boston, and who knows what goes on with their roster, and we'll see what happens in Milwaukee with Giannis and some other teams, Miami, another team. So I think there are teams that would be a little bit more aggressive if they don't have to give up a ton to get Kevin. I thought he would have been moved by the weekend. It's funny, I was texting with somebody on Sunday, and I said, "Can I leave my house for like 2 hours to go do something? And is this going to happen?" And they're like, "No, you're good." And you're kind of waiting, and now it's not as probably hot as maybe it was about a week ago.
Yeah, and it's interesting. We're chatting with Bobby Marks. Like what you just mentioned seems very clear that teams are looking at Indiana and thinking the East could be wide open. I think that's why Orlando just made the deal that they made. And if you're the Raptors, presuming you're not giving up Scotty Barnes, like is there anything that would make sense? Is there any way to acquire, let's say it's Kevin Durant, because we're speaking of him, where Durant is on the Raptors, and they don't give up so much where you could actually reasonably picture them in the NBA Finals next year? Like, is that possible? Because if it's going to be Kawhi 2.0, that's the bar. Not just getting it, you got to win it.
I mean, I would say if you were doing Durant, just hypothetical, like Brandon Ingram and 9 and whatever salary filler, right? Like, is that too much? I don't know. I mean, the 9th pick could be pretty good. And then you've got Ingram for 3 more years. And he's, we just haven't seen him just because he's been injured. But you still have Scotty, and you would have Durant, and you'd have Quickly, and you'd have Barrett, and you'd have Pirtle, and you'd have some of the younger players still, and you'd have all your draft picks moving forward. I think that's kind of like, if you're trying to do a deal like that and you mitigate the risk of him leaving next year, that's probably what you would probably, try to put in the package.
All right. I like that idea. Let's see what happens here. Let's see what happens in the next couple of weeks.
Just hypothetically.
Hypothetically, I agree. We know. Believe me, we got you. Game 6 tonight. Enjoy it, and we always appreciate you finding time. Thank you, Bobby.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Bobby Marks, ESPN, NBA front office insider. Game 6, Oklahoma City, Indiana tonight. Halliburton will play, but big spread, OKC. It's in Indiana, so the crowd will be crazy, and the start's going to be important. But man, the Thunder there, imagine having that many draft picks still coming.
That's crazy.
Like they just fleeced so many teams and traded to get so many picks, because they you're going back to the trading off Harden back in the day, and all these different deals that took place. It's incredible. All right, Pierre LeBrun in about 20 minutes. The Jays, I don't think it went so well for the Blue Jays today. I guess they're still playing, but they're down 9-5. They're trying to battle here. And the Travelers, day one of the Travelers, there's my boy Scotty Scheffler, 8 under. What a day. Scotty Scheffler, 8 under in the clubhouse.
62?
Yeah, he shot a 62. Him and Austin Eckroat shot a 62.
Wow.
Like this, you go from Oakmont.
Dude, you put that guy on any kind of TPC course or just a standard golf course, he's shooting 62.
Yeah, it's crazy. Honestly, you have to trick the course out insanely to keep him away from the leaderboard.
Yeah.
You have to. Because you're right. Anything like this with wide fairways and greens that are pins that are gettable.
I saw a video he did for Travelers just walking down 18, and his approach is very simple. It's obviously want to just butter it down the middle of the fairway, but there's the miss, and you can't go in that bunker, and he was just short of the bunker. He hit it to 7 feet, and he made the putt, and it's he makes the game look so easy.
So routine. It's incredible. Yeah. Surgical out there. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and up on YouTube Live. All right, Pierre LeBrun coming up in the next hour. And we caught up with Brian McCabe earlier today. We'll revisit that chat, get to our best bet still to come. There's a lot of wild stuff going on out there. This Jesse Marsh, what's going on with CONCACAF?
What's he being investigated for?
I don't know all the details because he's currently facing he's serving a suspension right now. Like, they beat Honduras 6-0 the other night. He's up in the presser, because he was losing it at the Nations League stuff. And he's been pretty outspoken about CONCACAF and Canada. And I don't want to speak out of turn because I don't know exactly what's going on. But he has caused a pretty big stir, man.
Yeah.
Like, Marsh has been on the job for, a year and a half. There's been the Davies stuff, and Alfonso's been there supporting his team. He was in Edmonton supporting the Oilers, obviously, last week as well. But that's good to see Alfonso around the team, even though he's still recovering from his injury. But, yeah, Jesse Marsh, man, you talk about getting your name out there. I don't know if he's ecstatic with all of the headlines, but you can't miss it. Jesse Marsh is right in the middle of everything.
Honestly, right in the middle of everything.
Yeah.
I was texting with both you guys. Speaking that Rob Ford documentary, like, I don't know if you watched it on Netflix, man. Like, I forgot. Like, that was when I just was moving to Toronto. Like this, 14, 15 years ago.
Yeah, my wife was watching it today, and I was kind of hearing it in the background and checking it out. And
it's only 45 minutes long. I feel like they just kind of like wrapped it up. Like, okay, that's it. Like
the whole thing's only 45 minutes?
Yes.
How is that possible? Because what I heard was like the build-up.
I want
of him.
4 epis of 45 each.
Yes.
This should have been. That's
I
my
want the
point.
Last Dance. I want the Last Dance.
That's and I again listen. It's politics and all that outside of that, but it was fascinating because I remember it. Like, we all remember it. We were here. It's like
there will never be another story like the Rob Ford story.
No,
like there will never be another politician like him. There will ever. Like the Rob Ford run was one that
it's wild.
You'll never ever experience ever again.
Exactly.
And to push it into 45 minutes. Like, there would have been so many things that would have been excluded.
Dude, his interviews alone.
Well, that's what they had them. If there was no, like, they could have interviews alone that they would break them down for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
But there was just like glossing over. It's like, okay, remember about this one?
And
even the people being interviewed, it's like, oh, I forgot about that one. You're like, oh, I didn't.
You can't gloss over.
No, there was one clip, and we're not going to play it, but it was so insane where he just got into what another reporter said about him, and he said, no, that's not true. I'm okay at home. It was the craziest thing I think I've ever heard a politician say.
One of the most wild details of that is he's in an Argos jersey, and they're about to play the Ticats in like the Eastern Final, and the reason he was out was to talk about that.
It is. I'm telling you,
he was promoting the game.
Yes.
It's
and that's why he said, "Oh, and by the way."
Yeah. It is just insane.
Yeah,
it's insane. Like,
oh man. All right. Final hour coming up.
Can we play that or no?
No.
I don't know. I possibly. We'd have to edit. Like, a lot of the big stuff in that was crazy.
Yeah, we don't even need. We don't need that. We've got a week left. We don't need it.
OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.
Welcome back to the show. Time for our top 5 moments of the World Junior Hockey Championships. From heartbreaks to thrilling finishes, and of course, can you believe it moments. Enjoy.
On lead feed. Here's Patrick Sullivan in alone, and Fleury plays it away from the score. Marc-Andre Fleury.
NHL Draft on TSN.
This is OverDrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog on TSN 1050.
Final hour OverDrive continues, powered by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. We're up on TSN 2 now. We're up on YouTube Live on TSN's YouTube channel. Every day up on YouTube Live. You can find us podcasted, the iHeartRadio app. You can find us everywhere. Get to our best bets later in the hour. Game 6 NBA Finals tonight. Pierre LeBrun here in a few moments on Matt Duchene signing a new deal, an extension down in Dallas. 4 years, $4.5 million per. And that takes the centerman off the market, right?
Yeah.
Like we're kind of waiting to see if Sam Bennett just re-signs in Florida. I'm expecting that. I think most people are.
I wouldn't be surprised if it happens relatively soon.
Yeah. Like, just
so?
work it out, find out what the number is. I don't know what that number is going to look like. I'm assuming it's a long-term deal.
Mm-hmm. What does he make right now? Is he made like 6?
No, not even. No, because he's coming
4?
off a deal in Calgary, right? He signed and again, when he came into the league, he didn't put up big numbers.
4.425.
Yeah.
On a
That's
4-year deal.
Just an unreal contract to pick up. And he's been worth every penny.
He's going to double. I think he doubles that. I think he gets something with an 8 in it in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's and if he becomes a free agent and goes somewhere else, that pushes it up into 9 or 10 because you get bidding wars. He could probably get 8 in Florida. Again, I'm without any knowledge, but I'm assuming he could, if he wants to stay within the pecking order and they want to make it work with the cap slightly going up, all of that type of stuff, I think he could probably find something with an 8 in it at 8 years. So he gets the extra year. That's the other thing. If he wants the term and all of that at this age, and this is his final contract at 28 years old, 8 puts you to 36.
That's a great career. What'll be interesting is, does he get the no movement clause, the no trade clause?
Yeah.
That's where it can get sticky too. Because if Florida says, well, we'd like you to take a discount and we're not giving you any of that because we might need to flip
that might be a
2
deal
years.
breaker, to be honest with you.
Yep. Like if I'm Bennett, I might say I'll take a little bit less, but I'm moving here and never leaving.
Yes.
So it's full no move, full no trade. And then that's when the rubber could hit the road. You know, that's where it gets dicey. Because Florida may be thinking, I want this guy for another 2 or 3 years for sure. Do I want him for 5, 6, 7, 8? I don't know. Like I might need to be able to move off him in a little bit.
At some point. Yeah.
Yeah, and that'll be very, very interesting. Because I don't remember if did Reinhart get a full no move, full no trade? He signed he signed for 8 years at $8.6 million or whatever. But I don't recall what the details of his contract were.
I would assume that it's probably full, but I'll try.
Generally speaking, you're a UFA of status. That's just they hand that stuff out like candies in the NHL.
Of course they do.
Like there's third, fourth line guys with limited no trade clauses, which that is insane. Like that is just how the managers collectively throughout the league have been like, yeah, it's a good idea to sign a fourth line guy and give him 10 teams he can't be traded to. Like, what? Why? Guy's on the fourth line. Why would you give him any power over what could happen in the future?
Did Jerry Engvall have?
I wouldn't be surprised.
That's why they might have waived him, right?
Possibly. Like I believe David Camp has a limited no trade. I believe.
Okay, here's Sam Reinhart. No move clause through June 30th of 2030. Modified no trade clause. 16-team no trade list after that. So 2030. So another
5 years where he's not going anywhere. Then maybe at the end, they could move off. Yeah. We never discussed Paul Maurice doing the handshake line the other night. Oh yeah, where he was right in there.
It's okay in the finals.
Well, here's my take on this. You guys tell me if I'm crazy. I think he realized within 20 minutes of leaving Carolina that he should have never told Rod Brind'Amour what to do.
Right.
And I would guess he went back and said, I took it too far there, like lecturing Rod on the ice after we beat him. Because I think he looked at Knobloch and was like, what do you want to do? Like, not I'm going to tell you I don't think we should do this and it's for the players.
As it should be.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think Knobloch said, I'm going in and we lost, but this is the way it's going to go. And because Brind'Amour's been doing the rounds and saying he basically
wasn't happy
he's
about
pissed.
it.
Yeah, he's not happy. That and again, I get where Maurice is coming from. Like I can reason with his stance, but you just beat them. Brind'Amour is so intense. And you're like lecturing him on why he shouldn't go in the line.
We thought it was insane.
That was crazy. That was a crazy look. And I think Paul probably realized I need to shut up on that one. Like we're beating all these teams, 2-time Cup finals. If the coaches want to go through, then we go through. That would be my guess. Here's Pierre LeBrun, our TSN hockey insider. What's going on, Pierre?
Back to the handshake line, are we? Well, believe me, sitting in the press box the other night, and Noodles was there, I was making sure I was paying attention to just that. Wanted to make sure that Paul Maurice got in that handshake line. And he
did. He did. After telling Rod Brind'Amour that he shouldn't.
That's the thing, though. When you win, it's all easier. Like, you can handshake, not handshake. Like, that's why I think Brind'Amour was so pissed. It's like this guy who's won is dictating what's going on. And I believe Brind'Amour went on a podcast or something because I thought and he said, like,
I'll never do that again.
I'll never do that again. Which is even worse.
Which I kind of love that Brind'Amour's like, what are you going to do? I'm going to get in line. You want to go at middle ice? Like, whatever you want. I'm lining up. I love that.
I will tell you this. Having spent the better part of 2 weeks writing a lot about the Florida Panthers, including the other night, and checking out some of the comments on my Athletic columns from non-Panthers fans, there are a lot of people around the hockey world, hockey fan-wise, that can't wait for Florida not to win another cup. Like, I don't remember Tampa getting the same kind of hate that other fan bases seem to have for Florida. And I guess I understand it, the way the Panthers play. And
Everyone hates them, Pierre.
But I mean, I love what they put together. I got to say, and with someone with no skin in the game in terms of fanhood, I don't know. I love the way they go about things. I mean, I think
the greatest compliment they could have.
Yeah, I mean,
that everyone hates them. It's a great compliment.
And the thing I love the most in some ways, and I'm not old school to the point. I embrace all data. I understand where we are in 2025. But one of the things I love the most, because they're big, by the way, they're big on data themselves. They use all the modern tools that are out there. But this idea that the game should be played a certain way and that's the way the team should be built, and then Florida just goes out and smashes you right in the mouth when it matters. I mean, honestly, like that's the first thing you should think of when you're talking about the Florida Panthers.
Yeah, and now they go back to the drawing board. Bennett, Ekblad, Marchand. What happens here in the next 2 weeks in Florida?
Yeah, I mean, listen, Bill Zito's going to try to sign them all, is what he said after the Cup was won. I think there was some emotion of the moment at play there when he said that. I mean, I believe him when he says he's going to try. I don't know how real it is. I mean, Marchand has always felt like more of the rental, even though he's become maybe the greatest rental ever. But they've got a tight cap situation. Bennett's the number one priority has to be. There's a number where he can stay, and then there's a number that his agent has told him he can definitely get him on the market. And it's going to come down, for me, it comes down to what does Sam Bennett want? I talked to Sam right after they won the Cup on the ice, and again, the emotion of the moment, I'm sure, but he couldn't see himself in another uniform is essentially what he told me. But he also just won a Cup. So, to me, it comes down to the player, because I think his agent, Darren Ferris, has told him that if they go to market, he can go get him $10 million a year somewhere else. But there's no 10 in Florida. So, how much does the extra dough matter to him, especially when you consider tax-free in Florida? He kept referring to his teammates as his brothers that night. It was pretty, if you really listen to him, that where his heart is. But he's also never made big money. So you keep kind of in your head going back and forth as to what's going to trump what here in terms of his decision. But Zito went until June 30th at midnight to get Reinhard re-signed last year. As you guys remember, I was tracking it, and he went right down to the wire as far as being able to get Reinhard 8 years. And I suspect this one will go down to the wire either way as well.
Pierre, I know Jerry, our buddy, doesn't really think it's an issue, but like you mentioned numbers for Bennett elsewhere. Like, what are other GMs saying about the tax? Like, it's got to be a factor, no?
I mean, it honestly depends on the player. Like, there are players that get here and realize that $1 million here, $1 million there, but do I have a chance to win a cup? I mean, all those things play into it. And so one of the interesting things that's happening now is that a lot of the non-state tax teams are also teams where you can win a cup. So they're intertwining, which is why they populate so many lists of these free agents. But I don't know that I'm ready to say that's the number one thing for every single player, because it does vary when you talk to agents from conversation to conversation. It really depends what a guy's looking for. And I'll give you an example. I think if Brad Marchand leaves, I think in his case, and I think we all agree during his peak years as an NHLer, he ended up being pretty underpaid for the kind of player he became. He signed that extension too quick years ago in 2016. And so I think for him, even though he just won another cup, I think for him, it'll be more of the total dollars, like who's ready to really step up here. And so if he can get a 4-year deal at north of $8 million a year at the age of 37, I think he'll take that in a lot of different places, not just the places we always hear about.
So Matt Duchene signs that deal. Do you think it'll have a lot of impact on John Tavares' deal as far as them being the same age, all of that type of stuff? I mean, what do you make of it?
I'm sure Brad Fielding wishes that were true. I know for a fact that unless there was a lot of term attached to it, there's no way Tavares signs for $5 million a year with the Leafs. So it's going to have to be more than that. Now, Leafs can be creative. Like if you're willing to throw term at an aging player, that brings down the AAV for sure. I mean, it's all, again, the total dollars matter more than the AAV when it's your last crack at it free agent-wise. But on a normal contract, what I was told last week is that 5 was too low from the Tavares camp point of view. And I think, again, you have to understand that, Duchesne in Dallas, no state income tax, blah, 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 a bit of a different situation there. What's interesting, though, is that I would not have anticipated Duchesne was the first extension done in Dallas. I would have thought it would have been Jamie Benn, who I still think will resign in Dallas. But what it's done now is if you take into account that you think Ben is staying and Duchesne's already signed, Gramlin's also UFA, but the Stars need to move money. They're right at the cap. In fact, they're the team with the least amount of cap space right now in the entire league as of today. I think they'll try to trade Matt Dumba, who has a year left on his deal, at $3.75 million. He didn't play in the playoffs, but given how desperate teams are on defense, maybe there's a market for him to reset his career and be the better version that we've seen from him over the years. But they got to move money in Dallas, no question about it.
Yeah, I'm curious about the Tavares, stance, because I believe they have the same agent, right? I believe Brisson is Duchesne and Tavares' agent. So, John can't play, my agent, because Brisson signed off on Duchesne by 4.5. And again, they're both the same age. Neither of them have won a cup. Duchesne had a really good season. I don't quite understand how Tavares.
But what's 4.5 in Dallas? What's the same
I don't know, 5 million?
I guess.
Is it 5?
5.5 to 6 million with the tax. I don't know.
Is Duchesne getting endorsements in Dallas like John is as a Maple Leaf? but I'm being honest, Pierre. Like that's the truth. Like, and this is what bothers people in Toronto is now it's state tax. And then again, like O said, you ask Bettman, it doesn't matter. Obviously it does. And for John.
You just answered the question, Pierre. Like,
what's it worth here? Like, and that's the whole thing. Like, why would the Leafs or any of these other teams not, like, why play by those rules? And why not, why not just say, I don't care about the tax and all that. We're the Leafs. You want to be here. You're from here. Matt Duchesne's at 4.5. So are you. Like, why would they not take that approach?
But it's not just about the 4.5. Duchesne did get 4 years.
Yes.
So that's not nothing. You know? So
do you get the impression? Well, let me ask you this quickly. Do you get the impression the Leafs are comfortable with a long-term deal with Tavares, or do you think they prefer short?
I think they would have preferred short when the conversation began, but the longer they're willing to go, the AEV comes down. And so this is easy for me to say because I don't have to live with the contract. But if I were the Leafs and I'm trying to maximize the next couple of years, I would go longer and bring the AEV down so you have more cap space to play with, which is basically what they did with Chris Tanev. I mean, I don't know that everyone expects Tanev to play the final year of that deal, but you never know. He might. You know, we're seeing players play longer and longer. Corey Perry is going to come back for another year. But my point is, I would go as long as I feel comfortable with on Tavares to bring down the AEV for sure. And that's how you bring it down. I think that Tavares' camp are ready to do that if there's more term. And that's what brought Duchesne's AEV down. If Duchesne signed a 2-year extension today, it would be way north of 4.5. I mean, the total dollars matter here at that age when you're 34 years old.
Right.
Yeah. That's
fair. So that's $18 million total. Yeah, maybe it's 6-year, $3 million per for John. That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Wow. I'm joking, Pierre. I'm not going to hold you.
I was letting yourself hang with the dead air on that one there. I didn't feel the need to.
Yes. With Pierre LeBrun, our TSN Hockey Insider. So McDavid spoke today, and you know his contract. That's going to break, I would assume, set new records in terms of a cap hit, you know, and you talk about a guy that can write his own ticket. Obviously, he'll get whatever he wants. Where does when does the radar start going off for you between now and game 1 of next season, if and when he hasn't or has signed a contract extension?
Yeah, I think that's the conversation of the day for sure, since he spoke to it today, really for the first time, because it was never really, it was never really appropriate to talk to him about the future when he's trying to win a cup. But today was the day, and I thought he addressed it pretty well. My understanding from making other calls, everyone involved, there is no predetermined timeline on how this gets done or not. That's number one. Like it's not like they met 3 months ago and said, this is our target date. None of that has happened. Obviously there's been dialogue, but they all agreed they would wait till the playoffs would end before they got going. It's similar to what happened with Draisaitl a year ago, if you remember. So my point is July 1st is not very significant, even though that's the day that McDavid could sign an extension legally for the CBA. That should not be circled by Oilers fans or any hockey fan, because I think this is going to be a multi-layered conversation. Before they ever even get to a number or to math on a new extension, they're going to have lengthy discussions about the vision for the team going forward. McDavid and his agent John Moldova are going to want to hear how are they going to, what are the ideas to make this team better and get over the final hump. Those are really, really, really important discussions that first have to be had over the coming weeks before they even get into phase two, which is what does a new contract look like. Now, I will say my sense of it is that McDavid is looking for reasons to extend and not for reasons to leave. But he still has to have that first conversation, and you never know how that conversation goes.
What does the reasons mean, though, Pierre? Like, does that mean he wants to see what the roster or the GM's going to do with the team coming up? Like, That's a lot of pressure on Stan Bowman.
Well, best player in the world. He's going to want to know what he's committing to. So, and because of that, and Brian, I don't if he shows up to training camp and September is still not being extended, I don't think people should freak out. I'm not saying it's going to take that long. I'm also not guaranteeing that he extends at all. I'm just saying that if he does extend, everyone involved knows that this may not be one of those things that happens in July, that this may take a while. And I don't know, and listen, we know the agent John Moldova, he didn't get Austin Matthews extended until August, right? A couple of years ago. Draisaitl didn't extend until September 3rd, took all summer. And like I said, if McDavid shows up to camp still not extended, that's not out of the world. That could be in play here. So it'll be fascinating. There are other teams watching with incredible interest in the matter, waiting to see how this plays out. I think that it's not everyone that gets to get in that conversation if that ever came to be. I think you're talking LA, New York, Chicago, certain sexy big market teams. I don't know, maybe Tampa, maybe Dallas, but it's not like 20 teams will be able to get into that conversation if it ever came to pass. But for now, my sense is this is about extending with the Oilers at some point in time here if everything they hear is what they want to hear.
How proactive do you think the Oilers management will be in dealing with their roster immediately, or do you think they'll sit back and kind of let things unfold? They've got some decisions to make, and whether goaltending, addressing some of the holes. And do you think McDavid's camp will be at least kept abreast of some of those moves or thought processes along the way?
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure they will be, yeah. Yeah, no, I think there's no question. I mean, obviously, Evan Bouchard's a very important contract to get done. I mean, you don't want to get off the sheet again if you're Edmonton 2 summers in a row. So what's the number that makes sense there? The goaltending's an interesting one. I mean, I think philosophically the Oilers this year were comfortable basically only having $4 million spent in goals so that they could spend the money elsewhere. But now that, they had 2 different goalie switches in the Stanley Cup final and didn't get the saves they needed, which, by the way, I don't think is the meat of the story there in terms of Florida beating them, but it's certainly part of it. I think they have to ask themselves if they're comfortable in goal. And if they're not, if they want someone to push Stuart Skinner and to a higher degree, that's going to cost more money on the cap that you hadn't budgeted for last year. So some pretty pertinent, I would say, soul-searching questions for the Oilers, who are close. I mean, there's not a team in the league that would have beat Florida in the Cup final, in my opinion. I mean, it sounds silly to say because obviously the best 2 teams reached in that final, but I mean, if they would have had some weird exhibition series where everyone gets a crack at them, I think Florida beats them all. Mm-hmm. So I think you have to be careful you don't overreact if you're the Edmonton Oilers, that you got outclassed in the final, and yet there's some important questions to answer.
Yeah, there's a lot of that reflecting going. Edmonton, Carolina, Toronto, Tampa, like Florida just kind of went through them all, and they're all really good teams. They all had cup aspirations, and they all, left early.
It's funny. We always say this, cup or bust, right? So define bust. Like, does that mean you blow things up, or do you just tinker and go right back at it?
Yeah. Well, and, I hate to make it all about the Leafs, but I am on OverDrive. The Leafs ended up being the only team that pushed Florida the distance, right? I'm sure that came up with you guys.
That's the new respect in the handshake line.
Yeah,
that's the new
we
put up the biggest fight.
Well, I mean, not much of a fight in Game 5 and Game 7, but nevertheless, beat the Panthers 3 times, which no one else was able to do. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying, retrospectively, if you're the Leafs. Now, you're being forced to play a certain hand with Marner anyway, so change is coming. But if I'm asking you three, like if you were Brad Treliving now, having seen how Edmonton got dismantled even more easily than your team, what does that tell you where you are with the Leafs?
Well, I think you can look at a number of things. One, maybe you feel good about the coach. You feel good about you got your 2 goalies. You got your defense relatively set. We always focus on core 4. But, this is where it'll be intriguing to see if they lose Marner, which they're going to, and if Tavares, it doesn't come to terms and they move off him. And then all of a sudden you get a lot of money, a lot of flexibility, and a team that will look and feel different. Whether they'll be better or not, we don't have that answer. I don't know, but the Leafs were a really good team. Like, they've been a really good team for a long time. Like, they got through Ottawa. Like you said, they started the series great against Florida. We had Brian McCabe on. McCabe said after Game 6, flying back to Toronto, he was nervous. Like, the Leafs played really well in that game. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, Florida humanized McDavid, Draisaitl, Kucherov. Like, they did the same thing to Matthews and Marner and Tavares and Nylander, but they're still going to be there next year. So,
I think the
that's
one
the
thing
problem.
You could argue that Bobrovsky had, 3 bad games in the playoffs. 1 was against Carolina and 2 were against the Leafs. Did he have a bad one against Edmonton? Not really.
He had a couple bad goals, but probably not bad games. Yeah.
But like those first 2 games against Toronto, I mean, he
didn't play good. Well. Yeah, now Stolarz got knocked out too. If you want to play that game, you can play the Stolarz didn't play, and maybe Stolarz makes big stops in Game 7, and it's tied,
true.
and that's the I don't know.
Like, I don't
think
we're going to have
those games.
I don't think we're going to have a full understanding where the Leafs are as a team for next year by the end of our show on July 1st on Free Agent Frenzy. I think
that's fair.
I think the Leafs are an example of a team that is going to need the entire offseason to see what the opportunities are. So they may do something more significant in August than they do in the next month, depending on how things play out here, given how active I know Treliving is on the trade market and calls. These things don't really have a deadline. These things may need to play out. But, I think the goal, and this is going to sound funny to say this, but I think the goal for the Leafs is to show up I can and believe that while they may be a less talented team without Marner, maybe they're a better team by the end of everything they've tried to accomplish this summer. Whether or not they can accomplish that, I'm not ready to guarantee. But if that made any sense, the way I put it, I think that's the goal. And, I tell you one guy, I would have no problem, again, going back to term and overspending. I would bring Brad Marchand to Toronto. So I would do everything I can. I know there is interest within the Leafs front office to explore that. The problem is, lots of teams are going to be phoning, but again, that's what you're getting with that guy.
Well, and hanging over all of it too is that Matthew Knies, is going to need a deal, and in 2 weeks, technically, he could sign an offer sheet, right? So
who's his biggest comparable in the league right now? Oh, weren't you talking about who was it? Was it Mercer? No. Was it Mercer's
Well,
deal?
Dawson Mercer is a guy that would be a comparable type, but he's probably like, the hell with that guy. It's like any other thing, Jamie. The team's going to have some comparables on the low end, and himself is going to have some that are skyrocket.
Right.
What his high-end comparables are, I'm not sure, but I guarantee you they're not making like 4.25 or 4.75, whatever Mercer's making.
Well, and ironically enough, it feels like Tavares factors into this again. You know, he signed first, and then it was Willie, Mitch, and Austin said, well, you gave him 11. And if you give him 6 or 7, Knies is probably like, well, I'm better than this guy right now. You know, or I'm going to be more important than him right now. Why would I take less than John Tavares? It feels like we're going full circle here.
Yeah, I mean, Knies is RFA, not UFA, and there's all those different
So
boxes.
are the other guys.
Yeah.
So were the 3 of them 7 years ago.
And if I'm the Leafs, I want to go 8 years with Knies if I can, just to not deal with this for a long time. But I don't know. Don't know if they'll be able to do that. I get where there are contenders sometimes that do bridge deals to sort of punt the ball down the road and allow them to be more competitive in the moment. But I'll give you an example. I understand why the Stars did Thomas Harley in a 2-year deal last fall. But that already just looks like a scary negotiation.
Good one.
He's got a year left now with $4 million, Thomas Harley, and he might be on the Olympic team in February. So,
he's going to make some money, that kid. He's a good player.
You might be better off bridging Knies just based on what do you think his ceiling is? That's the thing. He had 29 goals this year, right? So is his ceiling 40 or is his ceiling 35, 32, like that type of thing? Because he wasn't a prolific scorer anywhere, really, other than now he's gotten to the NHL and been more of a power forward that can score. So, is it a product of some great passes from Marner and all of that? Like he's going to have somebody different passing the puck this next year.
Yeah, those are all important elements to this conversation, for sure. All right, Pierre. Well, we'll see. We got a couple of weeks coming. It's going to be a fun 2 weeks. Thank you for doing this, as always.
Right on. Yeah, we'll do it again next week.
You got it. There he is, Pierre LeBrun, our TSN Hockey Insider. Best bet still to come, and we'll revisit our chat with Brian McCabe. Overdrive continues, TSN 1050 and on TSN 2.
Back to Overdrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
All right, best bets later in the hour. Jays losing today, but they got the White Sox coming up, which is always a pleasant idea and always something that's very welcoming. So we'll get to our best bets later in the hour on Game 6 of the NBA Final. The Stanley Cup was handed out, Game 6 down in Florida. The team picture was gorgeous, and our boy Brian McCabe was right in the middle of it, basically holding the Stanley Cup, more or less as close as you can get. And we love Caber, and he joined us earlier today. I know you began by asking him that. How did you get so close to the middle of the team picture?
Oh, I did. Well, last year I made the corner of the book there, right on the edge where like the last part of the picture was just my face. So I had to kind of squeeze in a little closer and get this big fat head in there this year.
I love it, man. It's got to be incredible. Like what is your last 48, 72 hours been like? How much can you remember? How many people are asking you what it's like down there? What has life been like for you the last couple of days?
It's been crazy, a little surreal. It still hasn't sunk in. I honestly cannot believe we just went back to back. And, all the credit goes to this group of guys, man. What a team. And I don't know, it's a different feeling this year. Last year we were on the edge of our seat. 2-1 game 7. They're all over us. The goalies pulled. So it was different emotions, anxiety and stuff. And this year, man, the boys just, dominated. Like it was like they just frickin' willed their way to this thing the last 2 games, and it was obviously special. Had my whole family here this time, which means a lot. Had my mom and brother fly down. All my kids and wife were here this year, so it was nice to be able to enjoy it with them this time around.
So, Caber, you just said the domination, especially games 5 and 6, where you really took control. Was there a point where maybe anywhere through the playoffs that you had a little bit of doubt where you're like, God, I don't know if it's all going to come together, or even maybe near the end of the season where you guys were resting and had some players that, you had to move around and all of that type of stuff? Was there any doubt at any point until obviously everything came together against Edmonton?
I don't know. I was nervous the whole time because obviously you guys know it's worse sitting up in a freaking press box than it is being on the ice. So, I'd say there was some definitely anxious nerves after the Leafs came in here and beat us in Game 6. I didn't know what was going to happen going back there. Obviously, they have a good team too. But like I said, our team, man, they just go about their business. They figured it out. They know how to win. They're well coached, and they obviously love each other. And just this has been such a special team to be a part of the last few years.
Ugly, when you say they know how to win, can you explain to a viewer or somebody driving around what that means? Like, what does that mean to a guy that plays beer league?
I'll tell you what, remember the year we won the President's Trophy and then lost? We were winning games 6-4 and 7-5, and, you can win games like that in a regular season, but we didn't know how to win in the playoffs because you can't go outscore teams in the playoffs. It's just muck it up and do what you do. And, I've just felt like since the last, I guess, probably 3 years, that they've known how to buckle down, and we can win games any which way you got to win them. Close games, tight checking games, physical. You want us to score goals, the guys can do that too. So I just think that they have just turned a page and they just know how to do it against different types of opponents. And it's just like old hat to them now. It's really awesome to watch and be a part of.
With Brian McCabe, and you're in player development, so I guess, a primary role for you is to try to find those characteristics in players. I mean, now that you've seen it twice with your own team, how does that apply to younger players coming out? You have that Charlotte team that's been unbelievable too. What is there a characteristic you feel like you found as an organization that has helped you here? Because there's a lot of talented players in the world, but you guys have winners, talent with the winning pedigree. How have you managed to find that ingredient in so many players?
Well, I just think from the top down, it's just a trickle-down effect. And, I give Jordy and his staff in Charlotte a lot of credit for basically playing the same way that the Panthers play. Like, we don't really have one genuine superstar in Charlotte, and we're playing for the Calder Cup right now. And they've done that from sheer will and structure and just outworking teams and grinding teams down in series, just like our team's done here. And it's been a lot of fun to be a part of. I couldn't be happier for that team in Charlotte. That staff there works so hard. And as you guys know, we haven't had a ton of draft picks over the past few years trying to build this team up. And they've had to sign college free agents and develop guys. And they've done a fabulous job. And we're in the mix to hopefully win another championship. Big game tonight in Abbotsford. So hopefully they can tie that thing up too.
With Brian McCabe. You look at what the Panthers did to superstars throughout this run, like completely neutralized Kucherov in the first round, Point in the first round, Matthews and Marner in many ways in the second round, Aho in the third, and then McDavid and Draisaitl games 3, 5, and 6, effectively were kind of blending into the series. Like how impressive is that to watch it live and to know like what's going on with the secret sauce behind the scenes to prepare for it? But like beating McDavid and Draisaitl in back-to-back Cup finals, like how is that even possible?
It's a total group effort, and I know a bunch of the guys spoke on this during the interviews the other night. But the depth that we have in this team and organization and everyone playing the same way, and there's no drop off, and no one cares about accolades or points and stuff. They're all in for one goal, and it just shows like the way they played and just shut the best players in the world down as a group. It was really, really special to watch.
Caber, you're in that management group with Billy Zito. You got, as you mentioned, you win the President's Trophy, but you didn't get to you didn't get to win that year, and it's a build. But Billy Zito's been a guy who's been not shy to be proactive and think outside the box and take big swings. I mean, do you feel like that's a recipe as well to not just safe as death type of thing? Like, he's made some big trades that have been organizationally changing. And even you add at the deadline this year, you got to bring in a guy like Marchand, who was a difference maker. Do you feel like Billy's, found an aggressiveness to him that pays off?
Yeah, like 100%. He deserves a ton of credit here. He showed some serious balls in some of the trades that he's made. Like the Tkachuk trade obviously started this whole thing, bringing him in. And then, we got frickin' Jonesy, we got Rhino, we got Marshy at the deadline. Like, some of those trades weren't easy to make. Like, you're getting rid of a lot of really good players or draft picks and stuff, and it takes some cojones to like put it out there and actually go through with it. We can talk all we want in the rooms about it, but you actually, he's the face of the franchise, and at the end of the day, it's his call, and he's put a lot of these pieces in place to make us successful. And as you've seen, the proof's in the pudding. Everyone's clicked and gelled together. And, I think Marshy was just the icing on the cake. I think everyone agrees, like, he fits the way we play. Like, it was like a seamless transition. I don't think there was any better fit in the history of the world than him coming to our club. And the way he embraced it and our guys embraced him, I think it just, it was spectacular.
You mentioned started with Tkachuk. Like, what about him coming to Florida, other than his hockey skill set, was so important in the development of the team?
The biggest thing for me, like, as you know, there's a lot of different hockey players a little different nowadays and stuff. First thing Chucky did when he got down here was took the whole training and equipment staff out for a big dinner and night out. Old school style, like we grew up doing. He was brought up like that, Big Walt, and did a great job with those boys. And I think he just brought that energy and that old school mentality. And you treat everyone, especially those guys, the heart and soul of every team, the trainers and the guys that are hanging bags at 5 a.m. I think it started with him just bringing that group together. And I think it took a little pressure off of Barkey. Barkey's a quiet guy, but he's shows up every night and leads by example. And I just think their personalities meshed well together, and the other group just jumped right on their backs and just kept going from there.
with Brian McCabe. We were talking about the elbow room prior to you coming on. What's the rules, regulations with management in the elbow room when the players are there partying? Were you jumping in on that, or what's the deal?
Well, as much as God knows, you guys know I'd love to be there. I kind of feel that it's the players' time. They did the work. They went through the grind. Yeah, we're a small little piece of that, but we got to enjoy it obviously the night of with the group, but let them go crush the elbow room. They deserve everything the next couple weeks, and let them have their fun. I'm sure we'll have some staff fun here on the sides, but, I couldn't be happier for them. I love the fact that they were there at 9 a.m. and they're doing it upright. They deserve it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we always talk about, days with the cup, and I know you had one last year and you'll have one again this year. What is the deal with, like, the Philip Pritchard or the keeper of the cup? While you're having your day, are they involved? Are you offering them drinks? Like, what comes with the cup when it shows up for your day with the cup?
Oh my God, those guys are unbelievable. They got, you think looking at it looks like a great job to have, but when you've been to a couple of these cup parties, it's a tough job, man. Dealing with a bunch of hooligan friends from Canada that, it's basically they're babysitting every day. But those guys are unbelievable. I had Mario and Glenn for my cup day, and Mario made himself breakfast and cooked a family breakfast, and they hung out with us all day. They are unbelievable guys, that whole staff, the keepers of the cup, and just to be a part of having those guys around. And, that cup day was really special. I think I had like 200 and some people. I didn't leave any stone unturned because it took 50 years to get here. So we did it upright. It was certainly special. Those guys are the best, man. I honestly, those guys, they go through a lot and they get to see a lot, but they're the salt of the earth crew, and I can't wait to see them all again.
Uggie, you said your brother was at the celebration, who has possibly the best nickname in the NHL. How did Snake enjoy the cup?
Snake enjoyed it. It was nice to have him here this year. Like last year, it was kind of a gong show. I had him there at Game 4. We got pumped 8-1, and then unfortunately, during the process of the Cup final, I lost my father-in-law before Game 6. So there was all that to deal with, a funeral and stuff. So none of my family could be here. So it was special to have Snake and Barb, my wife and kids, here. And he was on the ice and got to, have some fun with all the festivities. And we actually had a laugh. We had dinner last night with my mom and brother, Noodles. And to this point, we were talking about this because I said I may go on with you guys tomorrow. And the most my brother has ever laughed in his life, we were at Stampede Week one year, and Noodles went on the dance floor and pretended he had a club foot. And I have never seen my brother laugh so hard. I think he almost peed his pants. And we were sitting at dinner last night, and he was laughing his head off again, giggling. And I said I'd give him a shout out today. But Noodles, I'm sure you remember that night.
I do remember something like that. It was a late night.
It was something like
Stampede night. I know those types of stories.
Stampede.
Those are for books.
Gone every year since I was 16, so we've done some things there that, we talked about even Jason Strudwick dancing on the dance floor. Yes, we've all had our moments on the dance floor at Stampede.
As
for
you
sure.
should.
I noticed you got a hat on.
In a while, O-Dog, I got to say something sincere, buddy. You look fabulous. You look unbelievable. Playing weight, yep. O-Dog. So cheers to you, buddy. I've never seen you look so good.
Can you do me a favor for, just what I've done in the gym? Can you show the boys your salad? Did you go full Messier?
Wearing a hat, eh?
Well, here. Hey, I'm riding this till she bucks. I'm going 90s Messier. We just went back-to-back jacks, boys. Hey, if it ain't broken, don't fix it. I'm going to ride this windmill right to, until she stops working, boys.
As you should, man. That's a salad that's won 2 cups, Cameron.
Do I get the leather straps on the hat now, or no? Should I get the old windmill leather straps?
Comb it in a circle. It'll be just comb it in a circle. It'll work. It'll all blend together.
Everything blends in. I love it.
Getting younger, better looking, and thinner, and I just turned 50, balder, fatter. I'm going the opposite direction.
It's all good, man.
You're the best, pal. Thanks
for doing
this. You
look like a winner.
His
You're
teeth
winner,
look great, too. Your teeth look great.
Teeth look phenomenal.
Yeah, they're not yellow anymore, man. They look awesome.
They're beautiful now.
Yeah.
You guys are the best, boys.
Great catching up with you, Caver. Congrats, man. Thank you for doing this.
All right, boys. Thanks. Cheers.
There he is, the great Brian McCabe, man. He's the best. And we love having him back on, and congrats to him, the Florida Panthers. And we'll see if the Oklahoma City Thunder can take a page out of the Panthers' book tonight, Game 6. Yeah. This time it'll be on the road, though, in Indiana. We'll come back with our best bets on that and more. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 2.
Now, back to OverDrive with Hayes, Noodles, and the O-Dog.
All right, today's best bets powered by FanDuel. Make your picks and assemble a same-game parlay in seconds on the FanDuel Sportsbook app.